Hello, and welcome again to another episode of the Audio Program Council. And today we have me, the Omega Condor, Seabass, Bilth, and Barnes. And today we are coming at you with our rankings of all 12 theatrical Star Wars films.
I had to fight to get one of those on there. I'll have you know.
Bilth, why is the number 12 bothering you? Is it because it's not 11?
Well, you know, Sebas, one of them just simply doesn't count.
Sebas?
Is why it bothers me.
Sebas?
It's all dependent upon your syllable.
How are you gonna not count one of the most beloved characters that's been introduced into this universe in a theatrical release and not count it?
Because
Does that mean that episode 1 is the best because Jar Jar is an icon among icons? No.
It counts though.
I think Bilth has reluctance
least
to
in the top 10.
include that movie to his list because it is the only animated theatrical release of
You
Star
are
Wars.
for animation. You are pro animation. Make this make
No,
sense.
Except
right
for
now.
Star Wars.
Full, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a weird CGI movie that has the same animation style as 2007's TMNT.
So make
It's-
this make sense. Why doesn't it count for you? I just want to know really quick. Why?
Okay, well, as all you guys know, I have not seen the Clone Wars, so
That's
I
why.
am impartial to
There it is.
stuff that is not related to the Clone Wars because I haven't seen it. I appreciate animation. I love the Gendy Tarkovsky directed interquel that they did on Cartoon Network in between episodes 2 and 3. But when it comes to Dave Filoni's Clone Wars, it's a blind spot for me. And the movie especially when it came out, guys, because I was like 11. We were impressionable. When that movie came out, I saw it. I was excited. And that was not the Star Wars hit that my soul desired at the time. And I'm surprised to hear that you guys have good feelings about it because especially
I don't
at the
know.
time,
I
was
think
let
it's
down.
not a good movie, but I don't think that just resonates and means it shouldn't count. I
yeah.
just think the movie, that animation or that story that they started there with that film, they didn't really know what they were doing. It was very experimental at the time.
Well,
They were very much experimenting.
It's not
Are
even.
you talking about the Rise of Skywalker?
It's not even that it was
No.
experimental. It's because the Clone Wars movie, the Clone Wars theatrical release, was originally slated to be 4 episodes of the actual show from season 1. But
Exactly.
but
It's
George
to sell a TV show.
George Lucas
Yeah.
was like, wait, if these 4 episodes are done and we're still working on the rest of the season, maybe we should just release these 4 episodes as a movie, edit them together, and and everybody was
Yeah.
like, George, please don't do this, George. And then he's like,
he's
no,
right.
do it.
He's right because George was in control of that project at the beginning with Dave, and then he just sort of handed it off to Dave.
Yeah.
By the time season 1 sort of started,
But
you
George
can
Lucas was
see-
the one who insisted on making it on doing a theatrical release of the animated movie.
But you can see the style of that film and the style of the show is very, very different. It's very, very different.
Season 1
It
is
definitely
Season
came
1,
into its
maybe
own.
maybe like halfway through season 1, almost towards the end of season 1, you start to get like them knowing how this works, how the Clone Wars works.
yeah.
In terms of stylistic approach
And
towards
also
the
like
show.
that they didn't have a lot of practice with that animation engine.
Yeah. And the writing was also terrible at the beginning, right? Ahsoka, if you're an OG that
I was
grew
not
up
a
with
fan.
Ahsoka, she was one of the most hated characters in Star Wars. At the beginning, she got such negative reviews, and I think Ashley Eckstein actually said somewhere at a con or something like that she was scared that they weren't gonna get picked up, and she wasn't gonna come back to voice the character anymore because it got such a negative review at the beginning. Her character specifically, like everyone said she was annoying, which she was. Let's be honest. I think she's
I have a
cringe too.
question. Considering the way that we're talking about it, who here, if anyone, does not have Clone Wars as number 12 on their list? Does anyone?
I don't.
I don't have
don't.
Clone Wars as number 12.
I don't have Clone Wars as number 12.
I don't either. And that's how we're gonna begin. So
Seabass,
Bilth
start.
is obviously
Alright.
number 12.
At my number 12, it's the most obvious pick ever. Bilth, I
Yeah,
cannot
Clone
believe
Wars.
this isn't going to be your number 12, which is ridiculous, but my 12 is Rise of Skywalker. For obvious reasons, it is the worst Star Wars film of all time. It is so badly written. It retcons
Trash,
everything.
kid.
Retcons everything that Ryan Johnson did, and even JJ kind of did himself in The Force Awakens a little bit, and it just retcons it in the most laziest way you can possibly imagine. Like JJ himself has said that he never wanted to direct episode 9. He did not want to be at this film. He did not want to direct in this film. All the passion flew out of him. Like, this was a Colin Trevorrow film. This was supposed to be Colin Trevorrow's film. And it wasn't. And he had to step in and do it. And obviously, it shows he did not want to be there. And I just feel bad for everyone in that film, especially John Boyega. My God. That man got done so dirty by Disney, and I'm still kind of mad about it this day. And he said not too long ago, would he come back and participate in Rey's Star Wars movie that's going to come out in 2025? He said no, that is enough, and I get that. 12 Rise of Skywalker. Yep,
Yeah,
terrible
I mean,
film.
cheers to him
Hey, is
for
there
having
anyone who
self-respect.
doesn't have Rise of Skywalker as 12?
Yeah, Bilth.
Bilth, it's your turn. Would you care
It's
to?
me. It's me.
It's the Clone Wars, right?
It's the Clone Wars, Condor. It
All
is.
right, and with that, Sebastian, what's your number 11?
Wait, no. I thought we were doing.
No.
I thought we were.
We're
leaving
doing
it.
12s. We're leaving it.
Yeah.
Everyone got to say that 12. Oh,
Who didn't have Rise of Skywalker as 12? Besides Bilth, who already got a say for the Clone Wars.
Oh yeah.
I'd be interested to hear like 2 words of why you guys have it at 12 though.
Because it's garbage.
It's
trash,
garbage.
kid. All
why
of
do
your,
you-
all
wait,
of your
but
important decisions, you
importantly,
immediately
I guess-
take them away.
I guess more importantly, Bilth, why do you have Clone Wars at number 12?
He just...
So Clone
He didn't say.
Wars,
He didn't say.
To me, especially when I was an actual child watching it for the first time, I felt, I was used to those straight to videos, those VHSs, the DVDs. I knew what that was. So when I saw Clone Wars, it was clearly 4 episodes of an animated series, which at the time, especially the CGI, the art style and everything, it was more akin to Jimmy Neutron than
Yeah,
to
it was.
whatever we have nowadays. Like the art style in that show, I still haven't watched the whole thing, but in what I have seen, where it began and where it ended is wild in terms of like visuals. Because it definitely got...
It
grew
changes
into its
so
own.
much. It changes
Yeah,
so
yeah.
much. Yeah.
But that initial version of that universe, it felt like a Cartoon Network show.
But once
and
again,
it
even
felt
back then, I think
weird.
it's even Lucasfilm trying to be innovative again and trying something new again in a
I mean,
medium,
for better
in a
or for
different
worse,
medium.
it's the most expendable of every Star Wars film that's ever been released in theaters,
Yeah.
at least according to me.
That's fair.
A lot of people forget about it so much. Even it's like
Exactly.
it's definitely
That's
a
what I
forgotten
mean by
film.
expendable. The fact
Yeah.
that you wanted to make this a top 12 is weird to me, just in the fact that I don't consider that to be a Star Wars movie.
Because somehow
'cause
there's
it-
a definition to Star Wars that's not being met.
Dude, I guess we're gonna return to that.
And The Last Jedi, by the way. Yeah. What is your definition of Star Wars? That's gonna be the big question. Anyways, Reeves or Condor, why do you have Rise of Skywalker at 12? Really quick.
Well, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. None of the sequel trilogy breaks into my top 5 because it just makes me sad.
Okay. That's fair.
Watching the Rise of Skywalker, because like I to this day I do not like The Last Jedi. However, if JJ had just taken what he was given and run with it, then maybe it would have been able to be saved, because a lot
Yeah.
of The Last Jedi's faults are that it didn't pick up where The Force Awakens left off in what feels like a natural flow. Like, it didn't feel like it naturally flowed. And then The Rise of Skywalker just did a huge disservice to the 2 previous films.
I
in
also
its own
think
trilogy.
J.J. Abrams fell victim to fan service with half the fandom with Rise of Skywalker.
I mean,
He fell
that's
for
what
it.
happens when That's what happens
fell
when
for
the
it.
Disney executives start to influence the director of the film, because the Disney executives are reading,
Yeah.
in Mark
The
Hamill's
tweets.
words, all the cranks that are on
Yeah.
Twitter.
Yep. 100%. I think a filmmaker should do the opposite. They should not be listening to the outside noise, and they should be making art and projects that they feel like is kind of their vision and kind of their art form. I think listening
you know
to
who listens
That-
to
that
that?
don't pay the
Who-
bills.
you know who follows that advice that you just said, Sebas? Ryan Johnson.
I know. I love The Lost Jedi.
I know,
Yeah. I
and
agree.
you are correct.
I agree.
Anyway, moving
anyways.
on.
Is it me, 11?
Yeah,
Right.
11.
11, I have the Clone Wars animated film. So I didn't have it at 12, but I had it at 11.
Well, there it is.
No, it's true. I think, it was I think it should have absolutely been what it was originally intended to be, an episodic release of the first season. I think them just editing it into a film was a little bit strange and, didn't service the story in any way. And once again, I think it was an experimental. That was their first time really crossing into the animated medium for Star Wars, besides video games and stuff like that.
Gengi Tarkovsky's
Besides, I mean that's a complete. I should say 3D animated.
Yeah,
3D animation. Yeah. First time. They were experimental with it. Lucasfilm probably they didn't have a lot of experience with it, and it was just. I think to me it was just kind of the rough draft of what was to come, and that's exactly what happened. So.
I think that it is the biggest insult in the world to Rise of Skywalker that you place this in front of it. That is savage, dude. That means that you hate Rise of Skywalker.
Do you know why I have it below? Because at least Clone Wars introduced me to one of the characters that I love the most in the Star Wars universe, and that's Ahsoka, who becomes one of the most important characters in the Star Wars universe, and she helps drive, once again, Anakin's story. Rise of Skywalker gave me no such thing in any way for any character.
It gave you Ben Solo.
I have two words for that, Sebas. Babu Frick.
Even
Babu
he's
Frick.
annoying, TBH.
I would place him above Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah,
I
wouldn't actually.
He's my boy, honestly.
I wouldn't.
He's a good boy.
You'd rather hang out with Jar Jar than Babu Frick.
I don't hate Jar Jar Binks as much as a lot of people do.
I can't, to be honest, man.
That tracks.
But speaking of Clone Wars at 11, I also have Clone Wars at 11.
You guys are gonna hate me. Bill, what's your number
No.
11?
My number 11 is falling completely into line with where we are so far. It's episode 9. I agree with you guys. It's awful. It's not
But you
so
did,
awful
you
that it
did
doesn't
like
qualify as a Star Wars film.
You
All
did
right.
like it more.
So at this point, these two options for you guys seem to be interchangeable. Well,
Yes.
I mean, yeah. So yeah, all right.
I mean,
Is
well,
yours
let-
gonna be?
let
Is
me
yours
ex-
about to be the Last Jedi? I'm gonna lose my mind if it
I'm
is.
gonna lose my mind.
Hey,
yeah.
But
I may
let
not
me
like
explain
The
a little
Last
bit for
Jedi, but I
episode
have
9.
more respect for The Last Jedi than that.
Thank God.
Okay, so guys, for this ranking, I actually watched these movies again. I actually did go back and I watched these movies, and the one that did surprise me probably the most was episode 9. So I don't put it at number 11 lightly. I liked this film the last time I watched it. Cinematography is amazing. Looks like a graphic novel. That first sequence where Kylo Ren is going across the galaxy and he's looking for those Sith wayfinders.
It's so
and he's
anime. It's so anime. It's straight out of an
so
anime.
good.
Straight
It
out of
looks
an anime.
so good. It's
Yeah.
animated quality.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
looks perfect. But it is like video game to a ridiculous degree. All of the Star Wars movies that, at least this is how I recently felt after revisiting them, are video games, basically. They're amusement park rides. And episode 9, I think, is the most blatant, you're being so obvious with the angle that we can't even enjoy the
Yeah.
story anymore. The action figure-ness has never been this ridiculous. The Knights of Ren, people talk about Boba Fett being a disposable character. The Knights of Ren are nothing. They are
Yeah.
set dressing.
Well,
They are boss
that was
fights
that
waiting
was
to
one of the
happen.
fans' biggest complaints when The Force Awakens came out, because they were teased in the trailer, never to be shown in the film. Besides,
and then
that
Ryan Johnson
flashback.
forgot they existed.
Yep, and then Ryan Johnson
Oh
just
my-
completely forgot. Now, I will
So
say that
this is my
ba-
last point about episode 9 is that a lot of the things that people blame Ryan Johnson for, including the two people in this chat, I blame on this film. I think that this film and Force Awakens are way guiltier than Last Jedi is, just by virtue of it being the middle part. This movie spits on everything Last Jedi did and makes it retroactively bad. Whereas the story choices that were made in isolation are cool if they pay off, which because of episode 9 they do not.
But I think that Condor kind of agrees when he says if he would have rather watched a movie where, even if he didn't like The Last Jedi and the decisions that Rian Johnson made, he would have preferred to watch J.J. Abrams run with those decisions that Rian Johnson made.
I would have.
In Rise
too.
of Skywalker, instead of trying to retcon every single detail that pissed off half the fans.
But the problem with JJ and Ryan in this instance is that basically JJ started playing with George Lucas said, "Here, have my box of Star Wars toys," and JJ started kind of hitting them together. I mean, like, yeah, oh, and this character comes in, and like, yeah, there's a new this guy is Han and Leia's son, and he's gonna start fighting this orphan girl who's like Luke but a girl, and then.
Wait, how did the original go?
And then he
Oh
was,
yeah, let me just do that, but
and
with
then-
these.
Yeah, and then and then he was like, okay, well, I guess I'm done playing with these. All right. And then he put them down, and then Rian Johnson walked and picked them up and said,
But I feel
Okay,
like
we're talking about- we're
you're
talking about
making it
episode
seem
9.
like, with that analogy, you're making it seem like he didn't understand Star Wars or the
He
Last
didn't.
Jedi.
I would say none of the directors who directed the sequel trilogy, I would say that they were fans, but not of each other's work.
yeah, so
when-
basically...
when other
that-
people went to play with their toys,
because
they were like,
while
"Meh."
so for the argument that Rise of Skywalker spits on everything The Last Jedi did, The Last Jedi spits on everything The Force Awakens did.
The Force Awakens was an entire movie of throwing the ball up, like a baseball match for 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
Like putting the ball
if I
and being
were
like,
to
"All right,
if I were
you
to make
ready?"
this an improv analogy, the Force Awakens did the yes and the Last Jedi said no but.
Yeah.
Okay, see, I don't think that's true. I think The
No.
Last Jedi builds upon what was there in a way that the Episode 9 is just maliciously not down with.
Oh,
Yeah,
The Last Jedi,
I agree
there's
with that as
Nobody-
well.
Nobody's disputing that. I'm just saying that The Last Jedi...
Two wrongs do not make a right.
The Last Jedi is retroactively bad because of... Anyway, we can get into this later, but Barnes...
So
you
yeah,
s-
mine's Episode 9. Number 11 is Episode 9 for me, even though I think it looks sweet.
Barnes, you said that the Clone Wars was number 11?
Clone Wars.
Yep.
Yep.
So, my number 11 is Attack of the Clones.
That's really
Ooh,
low.
Dang.
It
That's
is...
I mean, it's one of the low ones, but that's really, really low.
It is still...
That's way low, yeah.
It is
Yeah.
still the prequel movie that it is just an absolute slog to watch. I cannot stand
Fun
anything.
fact too, it is one of the longest Star Wars movies out of all of them as well.
That too.
Yeah.
I would much rather watch The Phantom Menace.
Yeah, me too.
I would
Me
watch
too.
The Phantom Menace 3 times over before watching Attack of the
I
Clones
think
again.
I think any of us would. Though.
Bold.
Yeah.
No.
I
no.
fast
I-
forward a lot in Attack of
Not-
the Clones.
I don't
Not
think that.
I.
I don't think that's a hot take. I don't think that's a hot take.
I
at
don't
all.
think I don't think that's a hot take either.
It's not a hot take, but for me personally, nah, dude.
You would rather watch Attack of the Clones than Phantom Menace?
I just
Yep.
think there's too many scenes in Attack of the Clones where
Jar
we're
Jar,
just
it's Jar Jar.
spending way too much time with Anakin and Padme and Naboo, being weird and awkward with each other. Just way too many scenes.
Space Romeo
If the
and Juliet.
casting was better,
Huh?
that would have been it. Casting's just off.
That's your argument for all the prequels.
If they would have just
No,
had
it's
Timmy
not.
Chalamet
yes,
back
it is.
then.
You want
No, it's not.
Revenge of the
I've-
Sith casted as well differently.
Well,
It-
no, I mean, if we're talking about just the movies purely, Hayden Christensen. That's it. He's great. He's iconic. Yes.
You just
I
told
think he
me when
should've
we
played-
watched Revenge of the Sith that you would cast Jacob Elordi instead.
I would. He's a better actor.
Uh,
Not a hot take. Don't pretend like that's weird to say. That's a completely
But you wouldn't be
rational
just
thought.
because you're a better actor doesn't mean you would play a character better than someone else.
Natalie Portman is one of the best actors working
Yeah.
then and today.
Yeah.
And she couldn't even make it work between the two of them.
Okay,
I am
I'll-
telling you,
but-
them with a different... That would have made the movie bearable, and that would have made the whole trilogy better.
I think if George Lucas didn't direct them, it would have been better because George Lucas is
He should
not
have.
an actor's director.
Correct. He's a storyteller.
He's the idea guy. He has the talent of thinking up these big complex set pieces that are beautiful to look at, but he doesn't the emotions
The
he does
details,
not know how
he's
to
not the
bring
guy.
those emotions out of people, I don't think. He just knows
Sure.
what those emotions look like, so he's telling them this is what you should look like. But
In
not
layman's
necessarily
in
how-
layman's terms, he's a better producer than he is a director.
Yeah.
I just think that a lot of the blame here is on Hayden Christensen, and the people in this chat are not willing to admit that.
Listen,
No.
I'm not saying Hayden Christensen is a friggin' like Joaquin Phoenix, or I'm not saying he's a I don't
Ewan
know,
McGregor.
I'm not saying he's a Ewan McGregor. I'm not saying he's a Liam Neeson. I'm just saying that he was better in Jumper.
Jumper, he harnessed his
yeah.
powers a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I disagree, but I won't get into it.
Number 10, Seabass.
At my number 10, I have Solo, a Star Wars story. Solo, I actually enjoyed Solo, but I'm basing this rankings off my favorite and not what I think which films are best. So I don't know how you guys did it, but that's how I'm doing my rankings. And to me,
That is
Solo,
also how I'm doing my ranking.
like I said, Solo is an enjoyable film, but it doesn't have my favorite elements of Star Wars in it, so it's not going to be high up on the list. Like
Lightsabers?
for me, Star Wars is Jedi and Sith and lightsabers are my favorite part of Star Wars. For me, characters like Han Solo and all these other types of characters that are not involved in the Jedi religion is secondary to me, and that's just what I find entertaining personally. So
That's fine.
and what I like, what my substance is.
Well said.
So Andor,
Yeah.
you don't like at all.
I love Andor.
Oh, you do like Andor.
I love Andor. Yeah, I think it's great.
What
I
did
think
it
it's a-
change
I think
to
it's
make
an
that
amazing
side of the
separate-
universe cool for you?
I just think it took Star Wars and separated it a little bit and gave us a grounded Star Wars story, which was fresh, and I like fresh sometimes, and it was good.
Okay,
Bill?
cool.
It was
Yeah,
kind
I-
of something. It feels almost something. It felt Nolan-esque a little bit. As Nolan as you could probably make Star Wars. That's what Andor felt to me.
That's funny. I'm interested. I'm interested in your viewpoint on that. That is interesting that you like Andor's approach to the
Yeah.
non-Jedi side of the universe,
Yeah.
as opposed to this movie.
Like I said,
Well,
it's
well-
not. If we did a ranking of everything, it wouldn't be high up because it's not my favorite thing to look at when it's Star Wars. But I think it's it was very, very well done.
We'll
It
talk
was
about this
excellently
when we
written.
do a ranking of
Yeah.
all the TV shows.
Yeah. Agreed.
Bill?
That'd be a cool one.
I think that's something we should do for sure.
That would
Anyways,
be my first time watching a lot of the TV shows if we ever did that. So that would be interesting.
Bill, your number 10.
All right, my number 10. It is. My number 10 is The Force Awakens.
Ooh, you have that low.
Wow.
Interesting.
Dude,
All right.
guys,
Wow.
you are misplacing a lot of the blame of the sequel trilogy, in my opinion. And to me, it's Abrams all the way. That man is guilty.
I would
His
say it's
crime?
Disney.
Murdering Star Wars.
That's Disney's crime.
Okay, exactly. And Disney is the other person guilty for it. And I feel personally that Rian Johnson, of all the people creatively involved in the sequel trilogy, Rian Johnson is the one that was most able to tame that beast, to tame the executive interference beast that is the Disney production
Agreed.
system.
I promise
Like-
you that JJ stood there in the meetings with Kathleen Kennedy and all the other producers and listened to every single thing they said they wanted. And he was just like, okay, yeah, you want me to ask these questions in this film? Yep, I'll ask these questions.
Okay, but
Which is
J.J.
what he's
Abrams has
famous.
an
Which is what he's
infamous-
famous for doing, asking questions that he doesn't answer.
Exactly. That's what I mean
Yeah.
about, and I find this, the T-ball thing, like putting the ball up, tossing the ball up, and not giving a fuck whether or not it's hit or like falls down.
But
Because he
inversely-
tossed so many balls up in this movie, and all of them just fall on the floor.
Inversely though, he knows how to hype it because those questions that he did ask initially in Force Awakens, everybody talked about them. Everyone wanted them answered. Everyone couldn't wait for the next film to come out so that they could answer those questions. Who's Rey? Who's Snoke?
Exactly.
Like,
But in my
well, this
opinion,
isn't that.
I agree with that, but that was the film's entire identity. Was
Yeah.
anticipation, was
Mystique.
promise, was
Even from
hope.
that first trailer, that first teaser trailer that came out, it all started with the marketing for that
Of
film.
course. But what I'm saying is that the hope and the hype and the ambition of the whole thing, it looks better. It sounds better. The actors are good. The characters are interesting. I think it's all so dependent upon how that story plays out that in retrospect, to me, the film that is harmed most by, the decisions of the film that's even lower, episode 9, like, episode 7 does nothing because the sequel trilogy didn't pan out. If it panned out, if episode 9 was a good film, this film would be a good film. But since episode 9 isn't, episode 7 just is not. Whereas I feel like what we're left with in The Last Jedi is at least salvageable on the rewatch. At least it's doing interesting things that are contained to it. The way that it connects to those two films, they're dead, dude. They're dead in the water. I like Force Awakens. I saw it in theaters 4 times when it came out. I was hyped, but it does not live in a good space in my memory. In fact,
that whole
it has
movie was
depreciated so hard for me.
That movie just rode the hype train. That's what Disney decided to do when they first started that first film. Well, they did the marketing for that first film. We're gonna ride the hype is what's gonna cause this movie. At the beginning, yeah. They knew.
So this was the
knew.
only decision that wasn't Disney, dude. Like the fact that it had been a solid decade since the last
Disney
Star
knew
Wars
that. You don't think
release.
Disney didn't know that?
No. They knew that, but what I'm saying is they would never let it happen again. The fact that they've gone this long without releasing a Star Wars film is baffling and needed.
They're doing that across the board. They're doing that with Marvel now as well. It's an across the board decision made by them, by Bob Iger.
That's what I mean, man. I'm not a fan of that. I just that was what the one thing that The Force Awakens had was Star Wars' old strength, which was it's a once in a generation event, baby.
Yep.
Here it comes. This is our generation's time to go on an adventure.
But what's going to be funny though?
Well.
What's going to be funny though? In 10 years from now, the people that are growing up with these 3 Star Wars movies are going to be the ones defending the prequels, like I am 10 years later. Because those are the prequels of the films I grew up on. Obviously because I wasn't born in the 70s.
On that note,
in 10 years they're gonna have discussions about remaking the Force, episode number 4, 5.
Hey
and
man,
6.
you guys forget how hated those prequels were when they came out. It was the same level of hate those 3 get right now, if not more.
I mean, I don't forget, and it deserved a lot of it. Those movies are not good.
But you see now, 10 years later now, those prequels are being defended now a lot.
Well,
and
they're better than the sequels.
And people are coming.
It's like a favorite child. We know what's beautiful about them now.
Like even just now in Empire magazine, Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen sat down for an interview, and they said it's funny how those movies that we did, people are grown up now. The ones that grew up with that are grown ups now, and they're all coming to our defense now. So for the first time, me and Hayden are finally feeling like the work we put in those films are being validated now. That's what these kids are gonna do now, 10 years from now, with The Force, Last Jedi, and Rise of Skywalker. I guarantee it.
All right. Well, for me personally, it's number 10.
Barnes?
And I don't like it very much. Not at all, in fact.
Number 10.
My number 10 is sand. I can't stand sand. I hate it.
Clones. Okay, that's totally fair.
It's coarse.
I feel like we
Get-
don't
Well
even
put.
we don't even
Gets
we
everywhere.
don't even need an explanation for that one. We know
Yeah.
it.
Well put, Barney.
Well put, Bonds.
So I lied. My list did actually change
You are a liar.
a little bit. And Bilth, you'll be pleasantly surprised. Number 10 for me is also The Force Awakens.
Oh, yes.
Because
very sexy, yes.
Thinking about The Force Awakens, every time I rewatch that movie, it makes me sad. Even more sad than the last time I watched it. Because
Yes.
because it is such a letdown. It is a huge letdown.
In what way, though?
Well, first
Besides
of all,
the fact that it's a carbon copy of
it's
A New Hope.
It being a
We haven't even brought up that as a criticism yet, and that's one of the biggest criticisms.
That's the biggest criticism of the
it
film.
being
I agree
a
with
beat
that.
for beat remake of A New Hope, but with
Yeah.
Luke as a girl instead. Which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that it's a beat for beat remake. They
It's
plagiarized.
just lazy story. It's lazy
It's very-
storytelling.
It's like
Yeah.
there's a fine line between it's poetry, it rhymes, and okay, can I copy your homework? Yeah, just make it look a little different.
See, but
yeah,
what I like about it, minus the cool storytelling, the bad storytelling, the lazy storytelling, it does everything A New Hope does, but just better, right? Cinematically,
No.
cinematic.
No,
Well,
no.
I have A New Hope low on my list, so we're gonna talk about this soon.
Wait, okay, dude.
No.
Wait until you talk about Force
Yeah.
Awakens, because that.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah, we'll go after. Yeah.
I smell it.
All
from
right.
here.
Wow. Not only is that take hot, it's stinky.
It is stinky.
Am I at the number 9?
Yeah, we're at number 9. Go for it, Seabass.
My number 9 is Attack of the Clones. So I have it.
Alright.
I have it low as well. I mean, I'm not even gonna get into it. Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
For obvious reasons.
Thank
Same.
God none of us have Attack of the Clones in the top
Yeah.
5. Bilf, don't disappoint me.
This
Don't
man
worry,
likes Attack of the Clones. He likes this film.
Hey, I rewatched the whole saga, so who knows now?
Oh, gosh.
I know.
Ooh.
Ooh. Is it my turn?
Yeah,
Yes.
for your number 9.
All right, fellas. Number 9 for me. Ooh, Rogue One is my number 9.
Wow,
That's low.
That's really low.
That's
I didn't think it was going to be that
low.
low for you.
Why is that
Nah,
movie so low for you?
So I rewatched Rogue One for the first time since it came out. And when I first saw it, my entire thought process was, this movie is ass for like an hour and 15 minutes. And then it becomes super cool for like half an hour.
45
And
minutes. I'll give it
everybody
45
who came
minutes.
out of that movie, everyone
Once-
who came out of that
once-
movie was under a spell from that last half hour.
From the hallway
because
scene?
of how good it was. It was so kinetic. It was so full of life.
I will say the most entertaining part of that film is when they hit Scarif. Everything Scarif and above
When
is
does
fine.
that happen? In the last 40
Yeah,
minutes, dude.
100%.
You know what's
That is what I'm talking about.
You know what's funny?
The end of that movie is the only part of it that is cool, and everybody who came out of the theater, and I was in the lobbies, I was going to the theater, even when I wasn't the one watching, people coming out being like, that was insane, bro. Like, you are high walking out of that
But
theater.
once
but
again,
the actual
once
movie-
again, that was the first film they made. That was a spin-off, first of all, and the first film they made that tried to do a more grounded story of Star Wars. It was experimental once again. You can't blame it that much because it was the first of its kind again.
No, it wasn't.
They-
Episode
yes, it
5 was more grounded than that.
No, but I'm a
Yes.
grounded story that's separate. That's supposed to be really not a Skywalker part of the Skywalker story. The main plot line of the story is not the Skywalker line, right? And that was the first
Okay,
time we
yeah.
saw that. So it's like
I know.
you gotta forgive them. Their issues with that film has to be forgiven a little bit because it was their first time attempting a Star Wars. Yes,
no.
the
Okay, hold
first
on.
time
No, so-
attempting a Star Wars
Wait.
storyline.
This is a good place to put this. Me and Condor talked about this off camera. Okay, so Star Wars is technically World War II in space. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They call them
Yeah.
stormtroopers.
George
Like,
Lucas
it's World War II in
always
space.
has said that.
Always. But the original trilogy, I feel, and, the prequel trilogy, now that I think about it, are very much about war. And they actually feel like they're war movies. And it comments on it not that much. You don't learn a lot about the Rebel Alliance, the hierarchy, the logistics of how it all works, but it treats it like it's a war.
I think that's a
Whereas with
secondary theme. I think that's a secondary theme.
It's
because
called- it has war in the name.
Star Wars is first and foremost a family space opera, and it always has been.
Well, yeah, but it takes
Yeah.
the form of a
Always
World War
has
II
been.
story.
I
No,
think
no,
that's
it
an
is,
that's
but
an
it takes the
underlying
form of a
theme,
World War
though.
II story.
But that's an underlying theme, in my opinion.
It has
more.
war in the name.
Nah, they're
I
called
get that.
stormtroopers, and every character actor from the original trilogy is like a character actor who used to be in war period films.
Come on,
all
you
of them.
guys
They
know
deliver
how-
their lines like a war period film. It's filmed like a war period film. He literally cites Leni Riefenstahl as a cinematic inspiration for the original trilogy. That award ceremony at the end of A New Hope, that is literally taken from a German propaganda film.
Yeah, 100%.
Funny thing, Bill, you said when you walked
I-
out of the
I don't
theater,
have
you
to
said,
be the
"Wow,
first-
this was like this movie was ass." At the last, it's funny because I went to see this movie when it came out in the theater with my girlfriend at the time and our friends, and I walked out of the theater, and I was thinking about it, and then I handed her my Sour Patch Kids I was like, "Can you hold this? I'm going to go to the bathroom." And I walked in the bathroom and I was peeing. I was thinking about the movie, and more was like, "Wow, I just don't feel satisfied with that movie." And I walked out and I was like, "Oh, hey babe, can I have my Sour Patch Kids back?" And she's like, "Oh, I thought they were empty. I threw them away." And then I said, "Damn, now I don't have Sour Patch Kids and I just watched a bad movie." That's literally what I said.
Ooh, so early on, you also felt the burn.
Literally, and then her and all of our friends looked at me like I was fucking crazy. Number 9 for Barnes.
My number 9 is Solo, and
Okay, yeah.
That's
It
fair.
seems like we
Yeah.
all have the same projects, kind of, but just at the low, but in different orders.
Yeah.
And then Reeves has his one.
I mean, a little bit. Although no one else has mentioned Force Awakens, which honestly, shame.
I have it high on my list.
You guys are
But-
gonna
but-
be upset
But the
with
thing
me.
is, I agree with your reasons, Bill, but I'm going to tell you my reasons why, in spite of that, I like the film. But I'll explain it when I get to Force Awakens.
My number 9. My number 9. And you guys are gonna hate me. You guys are really gonna hate me. My number 9 is The Last Jedi.
Listen, I don't hate you because I'm not surprised that you put Last Jedi there.
Anyway,
I'm not surprised at all.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's where The Last Jedi stands for.
Okay.
Number 9.
My number 8, and this is where this is gonna start going crazy now. This is crazy now. My number 8 is A New Hope, and this is why. I have always, from the beginning, thought it was the weakest Star Wars out of the original trilogy. But I will say this: although it is the most iconic, I will give it 2 things. It is the most iconic because it started the franchise. And 2, it is the only Star Wars film, in my opinion, that is an actual standalone film because it was originally supposed to be a standalone film. Because George thought, never in a million years, that he would make enough money to make other ones. I will give it those 2 things. But I'm sorry. The film is incredibly dated. It does not hold up today. It does not in any way, shape, or form. The choreo for the lightsaber is terrible. I'm just going through things that I find bad about the movie. The choreo is very bad. Alec Guinness, the legend that he is, you could see that he did not want to be there and he did not want to make that film because he saw the writing and he has gone on public and record saying that it was the most ridiculous ridiculous lines he's ever said. And he didn't understand a single word of that script, which I understand. I do love, I'm going to say a good thing about it. It introduces us to the characters that we love today and their dynamic. Their chemistry is incredible. I have never seen a film where there's chemistry between 3 actors in almost 90% of the scenes together and have it work. They do great with that. Han Leia, I could watch movies with Han, Leia, and Luke all day long. But, like I said, for me personally, the movie is very dated. That's why I don't want to watch The Wizard of Oz. Everyone talks about The Wizard of Oz being iconic. I'm not disputing that it's iconic. I'm just disputing at the fact that I would not enjoy the movie at all. I'm just going to be bored. And that's what A New Hope does to me. It's a boring film, in my opinion, to me. The pace of it is incredibly sluggish as well, in my opinion. Nothing of substance matters until they get to the Death Star. And then that's when the action starts picking up a little bit, and the intrigue. But, I just think, all the scenes at the beginning in Tatooine with the uncle, and yeah, they're okay, but they're not that fun to watch, to be quite honest. And that's kind of what my problem is with the film overall.
So
That was the most iPad baby thing
it was.
that I have ever heard in my life.
Because the interesting parts of that movie are the character motivations. Luke, like, seeing his mundane life on Tatooine. That movie starts with a fucking space battle where Vader's...
I just said it's a good movie, but it doesn't. It's dated. It's a very dated film.
You're just talking about the
Empire,
I just hear a lot
Empire,
of
Empire, and Return of the Jedi actually, in my opinion, still hold up today. They don't feel dated.
I mean, you talking about Wizard of Oz like that?
I'm sorry. That's how I feel
Man,
about it.
Pacing has changed a lot in the past few years. I do understand. But, nah, dude, that movie is perfectly structured. It is one of the most perfectly structured movies ever made.
Once again,
you
I
just
am
made me
not
want to delete
saying-
TikTok off of my phone.
I am not saying A New Hope is a bad film. I love A New Hope, and I think it's a great film. I think it's iconic, a perfect start to the franchise. But to me, it's not a favorite film of mine to watch because it's a lot more boring than the other ones, in my opinion. To watch.
Sebas, I want you want to watch on VHS. You want
I
to watch
have
the
them
original
on.
cut?
I've seen them on VHS. I have
Dude,
them.
I am telling you, let's watch episode 4 on the CRT.
I'd
Okay?
rather not.
It's magic. Magic.
And so's Empire Strikes Back, and guess what? It's a better movie than A New Hope.
Who said it's not?
No, I'm just saying. That's why I would rather watch Empire, because it's a way better film.
I mean, I agree. In fact, that was the one I most recently rewatched. That's the one I watched last night.
Sorry.
Amazing, dude. Insanely good. We'll get to that.
Bill?
You guys are going to gloss over the fact that I think it's not a bad movie. It's a bad movie. I said it's a great movie. It's just not one that I like to rewatch.
It's just not high up
because
on
My
the
it's-
list.
only gripe with what you
Lucas.
said. My
It's-
only gripe with
to
what
me,
you
it's
said
not a
is the
rewatchable
fact
film.
that you seem to be dismissing old style pacing, and that's the entire reason that you don't like it.
I mean, the pacing of it is big. I mean, pacing is huge for Condor. He thinks Attack of the Clones is sluggish. That's a big reason why he doesn't like to watch it.
Yeah, but I think
That's how I
that-
feel about A New Hope.
I think A New Hope is paced perfectly, and it's what
Yeah, it's literally
it's
paced.
one
it's
of-
one of the most.
No, I think
amazing
Empire Strikes
examples.
Back is paced perfectly.
it's a perfect
It's
Star
also
Wars
paced
movie.
perfectly.
I don't think so. I think it drags
Damn.
a lot.
Anyway,
And plus, that lightsaber fight between him and Vader is easily the worst one in the franchise.
okay, yeah, but that I'm like because it's not about the choreography. It's not about this sterile, perfectly choreographed swinging of glow sticks. It's about the underlying character tones and the themes and the relationship.
I think a theme that is very overlooked upon and over-exaggerated is the chemistry between Vader and Obi-Wan in that scene is zero. Zero. I do not believe for a second when Vader says, "When I left you, I was once a learner, now I am the master." I did not believe that. I was not, in my opinion, that wasn't heavy in any shape or point.
That didn't
The
have
only
you
re-
asking any questions.
It did,
Like,
but I didn't believe it. I was like, this acting between these two characters is terrible right now. It's god awful. It's god awful. And
Alright, I
thank
think I've
God
heard
that
about
the
enough.
external media, thank God that the external media came out, because now when I rewatch that film, it hits a little harder now. Thank God. Without it, it
I
wouldn't.
mean, okay, I hear you, but I'm getting iPad Baby, is what I'm getting.
What? Because people are so fixated on that original trilogy having to be the best of Star Wars that any sort of you guys are acting like Swifties act when they defend Taylor Swift every possible way. People cannot take original trilogy criticism. Star Wars fans cannot
Okay,
take original
let
trilogy
me-
criticism.
I would like to share something
Yes,
personal
that is
with you.
massive.
I would
Massive.
like to share something personal with
are you.
you.
Are you a
Please,
fan
Conor.
of Taylor re-records or Taylor originals?
Are you a TV kind of guy? Taylor's
I,
version?
I want to share something personal. When I was a kid, I loved The Phantom Menace. It was the star. I had a Jar Jar Binks like plushie doll.
Yeah, 'cause
like
that's
it
your
sat up-
era. That's
so,
your era.
So yeah, it's my era, and I loved it. And then one day my parents were visiting a friend, and I was the only kid there, and they were like, and I was like, I'm bored. Is there anything like to do? And then my parents' friends were like, oh, we have Star Wars on DVD. Do you want to watch Star Wars? And I was like, yeah, I would love to watch Star Wars. And mind you, I'm about 6 years old, and they put on A New Hope, and I was like, this isn't Star Wars. I don't like this. Why does it look old? Star Wars doesn't look like this. Because I was 6 years old and I didn't know anything about making movies. Because the prequel trilogy is just a bunch of schlock that is made to get the attention of children. It is not actual art. It is just a bunch of big ideas put into a
disagree
movie
with that.
to shill merchandise to kids.
I can argue that the prequel trilogy shows the most innovation any movies from the time ever shown.
Yeah, technical
Just saying.
innovation for the
That's
sake of
called art.
spectacle.
That's also art. That's
and
also
while
art.
and while spectacle, yeah, sure, yeah, fine, yes, yeah,
I
and
agree with
and
that
while
wholeheartedly.
and while spectacle does hold a place in Hollywood, when there's no substance to hold it up, which the prequels don't have a ton of substance holding that spectacle up, it has a lot of ideas of substance, but then and now that I'm an adult and I've rewatched those movies, my opinion has changed because I know what a good movie looks like, not just what a good spectacle looks like.
All right, Bill, what is your number 8?
My number 8 is my number 8 is The Phantom Menace. This
Fair.
movie, I am so surprised, honestly, that no one has mentioned Phantom Menace yet. It's not top 5 material, man. It is.
I don't think it's bottom 5 material though, to be honest. Where are we? Are we still in the bottom 5? We are.
Yeah.
This is the bottom 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it is bottom 5 material. I mean, Phantom Menace, I think, is the biggest example of what Condor was talking about just a moment ago. George Lucas is a master at like stringing set pieces together, and with episode 1 of all the prequel films, to me, episode 1 is the one where he's at his absolute weakest. He's stringing together cool set pieces, but the way he's stringing them together just makes no sense. There's no gravitas. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan is a fun concept to think about, but in practice, there's not much there.
I will
Liam
say,
Neeson
though,
is
they
good in the
did
role.
their absolute best with those roles, the both of them, and they did the best they could. I do not blame those two at all in that film. I will say.
Sure.
No, me neither.
Sure.
Me
Yeah.
neither. I think that the acting is good, just like the sequel trilogy.
I mean, you
The
guys
acting
blame
is
Hayden
good.
Christensen for a lot of the stuff, so I gotta bring that
No,
up.
I do think that Hayden Christensen makes the films weaker on rewatches. But in this particular case, Jake Lloyd does a really good job, although he is a child, and I do think that they should have
I
just
am actually a
started
Jake
Anakin as
Lloyd
a teen.
forgiver in that film as well. In
Yeah,
those films as well.
Me too.
I feel really
Yeah.
bad for Jake Lloyd in that. I mean, also because he was
Exactly.
after they were done with production. He was going on like 10-hour days of interviews, and like he was on the interview circuits for 10 hours a day, basically for like weeks after that movie went out. And also like the fact that George George is not an actor's director, and so if he can't direct an adult to act well, good luck getting George Lucas to direct a kid well.
If
But that's
I'd
my
never
argument.
seen
The
those films
effects,
before, if I'd never
there's
seen those
only
films,
innovation in one regard. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, if I had
So
only
in
ever
conclusion, with my reasoning for episode 1, it's set piece first, and it's story like 8th.
But I think
And
George Lucas
it's
kind of meant that
poorly
too. That was
paced.
intentional, I think.
I don't think it was intentional. I think you're giving him too much credit.
You are giving
It's
him too
poorly
much credit.
paced. There's not enough justification. There's a separatist war going on that's poorly explained.
They're not even
It's
in a
not
war
a
yet.
good standalone
It's not.
film.
It's
In
a
fact, I think
boycott.
one of
It's
the
a boycott of
worst films
trade.
to watch standalone.
It's just a trade boycott. But it is explained terribly, in my opinion, as well. I will
Yeah.
say, yeah. It's,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the story itself uninteresting. The set pieces, and that lightsaber battle at the end. Seabass, something we're going to get into with talking about the sequel trilogy, the way that they choreographed those fights, the passion and planning that went into the lightsaber of the prequel trilogy is so good, and one of that series of films' biggest strengths, bar
Puts
none.
Last Jedi to shame.
Puts the whole
I mean,
sequel
we'll
trilogy
get
to
there,
shame,
but yes,
yeah.
the lightsaber tree of episode 1, especially that ending fight,
Shame.
so good. So, and Duel of the Fates, obviously, just
Yeah.
the spectacle of the whole thing, so good. And I
They
do
still
want to
use
touch
it
really quick.
in the sequel trilogy. It's so good.
Exactly.
Duel of the
And I
Fates
do
is
wanna touch
probably
really
the
quick
most
on,
played Star
the
Wars song in
merchandising.
history.
The merchandising of episode 1
Besides,
was important.
like the theme.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just, it saturated the fucking culture. I had a Burger King toy. I had Jar Jar. Like, there were a lot of toys floating around. There was just, you couldn't escape it. It just
The
took
merchandising
over
took off when Phantom Menace came out. Took
You're about
off.
to say Fortnite.
the world. Yeah.
No, I was gonna
And
say
in
Force
that,
Awakens.
In that
Force
aspect,
Awakens.
it's one of my favorites in terms of like impact. The way that it impacted the
cultural
real world.
impact. Yeah.
Yeah, what was wild.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my conclusion on episode 1. I do not like it nearly as much as any of you guys. I am so surprised that it has not been on anyone's list.
Oh, it's coming. Don't worry.
It's coming for me.
It's a coming.
Thanks for the hope, Condor. Cool. Yeah, I'm glad to hear that.
All right.
Barnes?
Number 8.
Well, here it comes. My 8 is The Last Jedi. And I'm not going to talk about it much right here because we'll talk about it later. And
Yeah.
that's all we'll say about
That's fair.
that.
That's fair.
It's still
right.
getting its own episode.
But highlight the fact that it jumped up a few spots for
Sucks
you,
ass. But yeah, it jumped up a little bit.
Did it
right? How many
jump up,
spots?
really?
How many spots did it jump up for you around? Just to know.
2 spots.
Hey, I'll take that. I'll take that. That's
I
two whole
won't
movies.
take that because your
That's
other
two whole
entries have been
movies.
awful.
Are you talking to me?
No, he's talking to Barnes.
No, I'm talking to Barnes. His other entries have been awful.
My,
I mean,
my entries have been around about the same as everybody else's.
I will.
except
No, I know, but it's like to put Last Jedi in that same company. Same with you, Seabass. Is just wild.
What?
Like,
for
just
two.
wild,
You
honestly.
put it.
Lost Jedi? What? I haven't put Lost Jedi down there.
Oh, not you. Sorry, Condor.
Me.
Dude,
Yeah,
Michael,
well,
you
okay.
know I like
Keep
The Lost
your
Jedi.
story
say-
straight.
I will say this: I do not like The Last Jedi. I am actively a Last Jedi. I am against The Last Jedi, but I
A lot of
respect.
it's
I
boring. There
respect
is
The Last
some of it
Jedi.
That's good.
I respect The Last Jedi. I just don't like watching it. I don't like The Last Jedi, but I respect
Makes
it.
me sad.
I respect.
That's exactly how I
sad.
feel about A New Hope.
Okay,
I
all right.
respect it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I don't
I was
like
about to
watching
say
it.
it sounds like a similar reasoning.
Yeah.
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 Well, my number 8 is the Clone Wars movie, the Clone Wars animated
You
movie.
have that so high up. That
To,
is
ra-
so
to-
high
to
up.
round out my bottom
Holy-
5, it is the top of my bottom
Ooh.
5.
That's crazy. What
The
was
disrespect to
that's
Last Jedi, dude.
that's disrespectful. That's disrespectful.
Hey, I said I may respect the Last Jedi, but I don't
I now
respect it
want
that
you.
much.
I now want you to come up with a legitimate argument why you think that movie is better than the rest of those 5.
So-
Specifically, why that movie is better.
Since this and
I
now
would like to hear
I
this
have
as well.
been taking
Yeah.
into account what is good movie and what is good storytelling over up until this point. I have been taking that into account over my personal feelings because I've been trying to view this.
No, I want to know your personal feelings.
But my personal feelings on the Clone Wars animated movie is I watched this movie at home in bed while I was sick and in the 7th grade.
Oh, so you
And
have a personal attachment to this film.
I do
see.
have a personal attachment to this film.
I see.
And I know, like, I didn't like it. Like, I was dissatisfied with the ending of that movie. I was like, this didn't feel like a movie. I'm like, why did we need to? When I first watched, I was like, why did we need this story? This didn't add really anything to. I didn't feel like it added anything to Star Wars. And because we hadn't gotten the TV series for the Clone Wars just yet, I really just like I was like, who is Ahsoka? Where does she end up? What is the deal with all of these? I'm like, cool, we get to see Jabba the Hutt, but Jabba the Hutt has a son that we literally
Jabba.
never Rota the Hutt, yeah. His name is Rota. And we never see Rota again. Like even in the TV show, we never see it again.
We do get to see Zero though.
Yeah, we see Zero. Yeah, but we didn't even see Zero in the movie, did we? Was he in the? Was
yeah,
Zero?
Zero's in the movie for like a hot second.
Oh yeah. That's how Zero
Yeah.
goes to prison. That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because
yeah.
anyway, so I have a personal connection to this movie because I stayed home and I watched it when I was sick at home, and I was like, wow, this is like, I liked the characterization of like Obi-Wan and Anakin, like. Oh, like we finally kind of see how Obi-Wan gets, like, why does General Grievous call Obi-Wan the Negotiator?
Right.
Because of that battle where he gets
Yeah.
that moniker.
For sure.
And Anakin, Anakin gets the fact that Anakin gets any characterization. I love that. So yeah, and that is why the Clone Wars is very near and dear to my heart, and at the top of my bottom 5 on the list.
Meh.
So that was my number 8.
You know what? Having an emotional connection to it, I understand that. So I'm not gonna really dispute it too much. But
That being
is-
Are we on
below The Last
7,
Jedi is
or
unacceptable.
Who do we have for
Being
8?
above it, you mean?
Unacceptable.
it's me. No, I'm on number 7 now.
Yep.
My number 7 is Spilth, The Phantom Menace. So it was coming. It was just one above yours.
Alright,
ha-
not bad, not bad.
I have The Phantom Menace at number 7, obviously for reasons I think it is. Everyone agrees with. I think it's a terribly paced film as well. It is very sluggish to get to, but I appreciate what the film was trying to do at the time. Once again, George Lucas was trying to be very inventive. George Lucas was trying to be more of an engineer in the film industry than opposed to a storyteller or a director. I agree with Condor's point in terms of I don't think he should ever be directing any films, let alone a Star Wars film. I just think he's not a good acting director. He doesn't know how to direct actors, and that's okay. I think is much better as a producer or even like maybe a creative consultant or creative director in these films. Yes, give that power to George Lucas, but directing and writing is just not his strong suit, not his forte, and that's understood. What I love about Phantom Menace, though, for reasons that Bill kind of touched on his reason, the pod racing scene. I can rewatch that scene so many times and just love everything they do about it. It's great. It's fast-paced, it's riveting, it keeps you so engaged, it looks so good, it's shot so well, the colors, everything is so dynamic in that scene, and I love it. And once again, the battle scene at the end, Duel of the Fates, is just so hard-hitting. Qui-Gon dying is so hard-hitting. You feel
Very
it.
hard.
You feel it. You really do. And then that iconic no that Obi-Wan screams behind that ray shield is fantastic in my opinion. I don't know. I love all of it. And then obviously John Williams went fucking hard with that Duel of the Fates soundtrack. Damn, he was feeling it. When he woke up that morning and he thought of that tune, he was like, I've got a banger. That's what he thought. He got a banger on my hands. And literally, I think we all listen to this song still to this day separately.
Oh, of course.
This was very surprising to Bill. Fun fact, it was my most played Spotify song of 2023. I played it 88 times during the year.
That was not a surprise to me. You love film scores, man. Of course, a film score is going to be your number one.
Yeah. But yeah.
Also, this is actually worth mentioning. Condor's mother, one time I was at a show that Condor was in, and his mother was sitting next to me. And at one point, she said that the song that she most heard coming from his room growing up was Duel of the Fates.
I'll get to that. I have a story about that, but we'll get to it when I talk about Phantom Menace. Go for it, Bill. Number
I'm
7.
just saying, literally, your
Cool.
own mother, Condor, has admitted to me that
That's amazing.
that song was important to you.
That's
Growing
amazing. That's amazing.
I think that song is the most important Star Wars song.
It 150%. It's not even close.
87%, dude.
No,
Even over the main
Force-
theme.
It's even over the main theme in my opinion as well. Yeah, even over the Force theme as well.
the Force theme is
It's
the heart and soul of it.
Yeah.
Bill.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, number 7.
Goofy. Oh, it's Macker's turn. I mean, it's Bill's turn.
Bill.
I'm Michael, man. You can call me Michael on this show. I'm Michael on the other show. It's fine. I'm Michael.
What if I want to call you Bill, though?
Yeah, what if I want to call you Bill?
Then call me Bill, man.
Okay.
My number 7, continuing with the sequel trilogy, continuing with the prequel trilogy. My number 7 is Attack of the Clones.
That's high. That's a
pretty
little
high.
bit too high for my
It's-
liking.
All right.
Sam,
Wait, am I the last
Space
one to bring it
Jam.
up?
You're definitely the last one to bring up Attack
Yeah.
of the Clones.
Attack of the
Oh,
Clones was
interesting.
all in our
I mean-
bottom 5.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So I consider certain parts of the sequel trilogy to be more of an offender than this movie. This movie, it's an adventure film. It's it's kind of like Phantom Menace, which you guys seem more forgiving of.
It is
for
not
some
an
reason.
adventure film. It is a romance film.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're incorrect.
the romance parts do not work for me as well. Although at the same time, I'm a Padme guy. I really like Padme.
Oh, you're
I
a
think
Natalie
that-
Portman guy.
In the words of Mr. Plinkett, who wouldn't want to dock their canoe in Natalie's port,
You're-
man?
You're a,
I'm a Portman guy.
A Nat Stan.
I'm a Nat stan. And I mean, her performance is just it's one-sided, dude. It
Yeah.
feels bad, man, to be honest. With her and Hayden Christensen, it doesn't really work. They just kind of
the chem's not there. It's not there.
the chem is off.
Yeah.
It just makes me sad, dude. It's wasted potential. There's a lot of potential there. The dialogue on its own, if it was directed well, I think if he conveyed the style he was going for, you could have had a real romantic tragedy on your hands. But with the way that it stood, it doesn't really pan out. And honestly, a lot of that is why episode 3 is lower on my list than it used to be. But we'll get to that. But I don't know. Episode 3, I think it really becomes an issue.
He wants more Padme in episode 3.
There's much more Padme. I mean, nah, I don't know, man. This movie's fine, but to me, certain things make it worth it. Like,
Geonosis.
for example, Geonosis.
Yeah.
We have never seen anything like that in a Star Wars film before or since, where you had more than 3 Jedi.
It is nice seeing like just an army of Jedi fighting. Yeah.
It's unbelievable, honestly. And if they ever did anything to top that, this movie might go down in my
Do you know why I think?
ranking.
Do you know why I think
if
they'll
there was
do that?
any other movie where it was a bunch of people with lightsabers going to war in some very well-defined battlefield,
I think
We might
Acolyte.
see
I think
that in
I
there.
think Acolyte has a good chance of showing us
Yeah,
that.
the High
I
Republic
cannot
show.
wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
And
but
also, not
in
only-
terms of movies, in terms of George Lucas made scenes, this is the only example we have of a mass scale Jedi fight.
Not only would we
And-
possibly see more Jedi in the High Republic show, we might see more Sith than just 2.
Exactly. That
When
would
it
be
used to
sweet.
I would love it if we can, if Korriban becomes canon. Oof. Please.
But yeah, I mean,
Korriban
episode
is
2,
canon. It's just we haven't seen it outside of Yoda's journey to become a Force.
I
Ghost.
thought that Disney said that Exegol is what Korriban is supposed to be.
No.
And that's what they made canon.
No, they
Am
didn't,
I incorrect
they
with
didn't,
that?
They didn't retcon it, no.
Okay. I thought they did. Never mind.
my thing with episode 2 is that, yeah, the romance is subpar, but there are certain elements, like when I was a kid especially, I thought that the way that Coruscant was shown in that movie was really cool.
And I slaughtered them.
neon. It's like noir-ish. It's in shadow, and there's an assassination attempt on the princess. And when there's an assassination attempt, it's
On the
like these
senator.
creepy worms.
Senator. She's a senator.
Senator
I mean,
Amidala.
she's also a queen.
But she's
no,
not a queen
not
anymore.
anymore. She's not the queen anymore.
Oh, she bequeathed.
The-
She
yeah,
got-
No,
she-
she
yeah,
serves
you
her
should
terms.
really watch the Clone
She
Wars,
serves-
Michael.
You fake
She
Star
serves
Wars
her
fan.
term. She serves her terms. She just ends her terms.
Yeah,
You should
the
really
queen
watch
is
the
like
Clone Wars.
is like a president title.
It's like a term. Yeah, you serve a term and then you're
so
done.
like, wait, this is important. Condor keeps saying fake Star Wars fan, but I think that what you mean is that I don't subscribe to the dogma.
He's not a
Because
war
Star Wars
enthusiast.
as a set of facts is stupid.
You're right.
But
I'm
Star
sorry.
Wars as an aesthetic is interesting. And that's what I'm talking about with Attack of the Clones. The aesthetics are on point.
But the
There's
facts are wrong.
lightsabers, there's spies, there's deception, there's political intrigue, there's bounty hunters, there's assassins.
See-
the whole Star Wars ecosystem is on full display. And honestly, that little chase sequence, and when I talk about episode 3, this is going to come back up, but the vehicles, the way that the vehicles work, the way that the vehicles are filmed, especially that chase with the
Coruscant.
Bounty Hunter and Obi-Wan and Anakin just going through the city. You got
Even what
these-
about the
Coruscant,
chase? The
home
chase
of the
between
mid-air collision.
What about the chase between Obi-Wan and Django in the meteor shower? That's a cool chase
Oh, of
scene
course.
too. Yeah.
Of course, that's what I'm talking about. When it comes to the set pieces being more integrated into the story being told, I feel like Attack of the Clones does a better job. When he goes to Camino and he finds out that shady stuff is going on, and then the sequence that ends that visit to the planet is like, it flows. It makes sense in a way that episode 1,
Yeah.
I feel like I have to give it a bunch of excuses, whereas episode 2, I'm giving it less excuses.
I do like the explanation to the creation of the clone army. It's very cool how they kind of explain the origin of how this clone army came to be, because that's a theme that's just, it continues. That story continues a lot in Clone Wars, in the show Clone Wars. And in Clone Wars takes it to another level, right, by just saying that they had those chips, and that's how they turned in Order 66 and all that. I think it's great.
Right. I mean,
in
'Cause you guys are
opposition,
thinking
because
in
that's
terms of
never
story
those chips.
implication.
But that's how I think of Star Wars though. I think of Star Wars story always.
I'm
No,
saying,
I know, but that's why. But Seabass, that is a blind spot, and it's the reason that you put one of the greatest Star Wars films in like your bottom 5. A New Hope is an amazing story.
Yeah, but
And-
back then when I was watching those movies, I didn't think about it as a film student. Now that I've done film school, I've done all that. Yeah, I can think about it. That's why I've said that movie is great in all aspects of filmmaking, but to me, it is a boring Star Wars film.
I
I
will
mean,
say,
I can respect that point of view, but at the same time, I just think that Attack of the Clones, there's something about it where it's not that it's important, it's that it does things that still to this day no other Star Wars movie
I'm going to
has
be honest
done.
with you. I'm not mad that you have it that high up. I wouldn't, but I'm not mad about it because I actually agree with everything you're saying.
I'm
Well,
not.
also let's be frank, it's not that high up.
No,
It's like
it's not that
7.
high.
It's
It is
very
higher.
middle
It is
of the
higher.
road.
Relatively, it's higher than ours. But I agree with what you're saying in terms of that film. I think all the points you're hitting are correct.
Yeah,
I
I,
think-
just,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. When I put myself back to a kid, especially, I think that was my most fun first watch of a Star Wars. Like, in fact, I think it's also worth mentioning this is the first Star Wars film I saw in the theater. I was a 5-year-old. I was 5.5 when this movie came out.
It
this
is
was
also
my
the first
time.
Oh no, the
That's
Phantom
fair.
Menace was the first film I saw in the theater.
Yep.
Oh, okay, interesting.
too.
No, I was
I'm
I was
also
too young.
I'm a little bit. We're a little bit older than you as well, so. Or me
Exactly,
and Just me
exactly.
and Bonds are a little bit older than both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But-
you're
but
only
when
older
I
than
saw-
me by a year, but Barnes is older than everyone because he's he's a geriatric motherfucker.
Yes.
My
And then
hip
Condor's a
pains
little
me.
older than me. So, guys, if you're looking for a youthful role model in this show, it's me. I'm the youngest. So latch on to me, fellow young people.
just for age's sake, Jordan's first Star Wars movie that he saw in the theater was Revenge of the Sith. Think about that.
Wow.
Yeah,
No, that
think
makes
about
sense.
that.
I technically
Yeah.
shouldn't have been allowed to watch Revenge of the Attack of the Clones. I shouldn't have been allowed to watch it.
I will say
Without parental supervision.
I did have a lot of parental supervision. Like 2 of my uncles and one of my dads was with me.
my
So you're good.
view on these is that like the points you're making, the set pieces, because like, or Seabass's point that like, what were you saying? God damn, maybe I'm the geriatric
Well,
one.
no, my point was that the set pieces are finely woven in this one, whereas in
Are you
episode
talking about my
1, they
point
felt-
as being like the films being good films, filmmaking films, and boring films?
So I'm like thinking that my criteria is like, when I'm thinking of these movies and ranking them, it's like one good aspect of one of these movies does not a good movie make. Like if one,
I feel like you bring up that point a lot, but
Yeah,
when we
because-
were
well, because
watching The
I'm-
Last Jedi, you kept saying that, but we kept bringing up multiple things, and eventually those things will start adding up to be a good film. How many of those do you need in order for something to be a good film?
Okay, so
Well,
like
for
you
Condor
guys said,
specifically, he's logistical. So
I'm more
all
logistical.
of the all of the logic gaps keep him from being able to consider it. Which
And that's
honestly,
why I brought
do
up
understand.
and that's why I
takes me
brought up
out
that
of the
point to you.
story.
And that's why I brought up that point to you when we were watching that I feel like you think these physics should be explained like Interstellar. That's just not how Star Wars works. For example, the bomb sequence. I just don't think something like that has to be explained in the Star Wars universe.
I just
In my
didn't care
opinion.
as much as they wanted me to care.
Do you see what I'm saying? Yes, if it was Interstellar,
Well-
I'd be with you, Reeves. I'd be the first one with you at the front of the lines,
It's not-
being like, "What the hell is this? Explain this. I want scientific proof."
it's
This
not
is-
the physics of the bombs that I'm upset about. It's the type of ship they are using because they all. We'll get to this when we,
We will,
actually have a Last Jedi episode. But, all
But it's
I'm
to go
saying-
back to the point that you're saying where you think one element does not make a good film. I agree with you. But
Yeah.
every time we bring up multiple elements, and eventually that starts shaping up to be a good film if you bring up enough elements.
Yeah, what are the parameters? Like 3 out of 5?
Just-
5 out of 8?
You know? So
Yeah,
once
I mean,
again,
I mean, guys, the point of the matter is Attack of the Clones is my number 7.
I'm not
That's
mad
it.
about it. I'm not.
I'm not upset about it either, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, the set pieces being good doesn't make it a good movie.
My!
Right.
I agree, but
Yeah.
that
Number
argument
7.
is applicable for all 3 prequels.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No doubt in my mind.
Number 7, Bonds.
The Phantom Menace.
Oh, you have it.
Ah.
Oh, so we're together on this one.
There we go. Yeah, no, I feel that.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
7 is perfect for me.
number
Jar Jar sickens me every time. It's gotten worse only as I've gotten older, and I feel like you guys will be there soon.
But you know what? I still feel
Maybe.
so bad for that actor, what he went through. Let's
I
take
feel-
let's
I
take
would
a
never send him
second.
death threats, like I
But-
just don't.
He got his due though. He got his due. They brought him back, spoiler free. They brought him back in a very badass way, and I'm so happy about it. My Bill has no idea what we're talking about because he hasn't watched it.
Best.
I'm lost.
my number 7 is the Phantom Menace.
Look at that. Oh, we all all 3 of us put the Phantom Menace
Yeah.
at the same spot.
It is
Wow.
Very nice.
It is
Very
pretty
nice.
much just like it is. It is Star Wars. It is mid. It is,
Star Wars is synonymous with mid. You think of Star Wars, you think of mid.
the Star Wars
Actually-
elements are very Star Wars, and the mid elements are very mid.
The fight sequences, wow.
Yeah,
Mwah. Mwah.
The pod racing, wow.
great.
I
yeah.
actually think Duel of the Fates fight scene is actually, I think,
Oh.
a little bit better than Revenge of the Sith.
And yeah, oh, absolutely. But this is the story. So the reason, Bill, you got that little tidbit about my life from my mom. Is are you there? Is your mic?
Yeah.
Is your mic? Okay, I was just making sure. You were tapping your mic like it wasn't working.
No, yeah, I was just making sure.
Okay. So when I was a kid and I first saw that movie, my parents bought me the toy version of the Naboo Starfighter with the little tiny kid Anakin figure that goes in it. The cockpit would open up, you'd put him in, and then it had like 2 buttons on the back right behind R2-D2's head, and the laser guns on the front would glow green and make the noise, and then the under one had like a little blue missile that would launch like in the movie, and it would make that noise. I lost the missile, but it would still make the noise. And I would just, like, little 5-year-old me, I would just run around my room, like, and I would just, like, and then I would bust out of my room with the door open. I would, like, run downstairs.
Wait.
I'm trying to stop R2. Let's try spinning.
Wait, are you saying that your mom misconfused the hearing, thought you were playing it, but you were actually singing it? Is this
No,
what I'm?
she
Is this
didn't-
what I'm hearing?
No. She didn't think I was actually...
Because then that would have been amazing. That would have been
No,
amazing.
I may be talented, but I'm not that talented.
Oh my god, dude.
But like, I would like reenact the starship, like the starfight, the dog fighting in the end of that movie because
Try
I had
spinning.
that toy.
That's a good trick.
And I would start twirling the thing around in my hands.
Oh man, great! I love
God.
that.
That was the thing.
mean,
that was
in
the.
the-
And that was the thing about like being a kid watching that movie. And yeah, of course, as a kid, I would love to play as Luke Skywalker or Han Solo. But
Yeah.
when I was a kid, it was really fun to put myself in the shoes of kid Anakin because I was 5 years old and Anakin's supposed to be like 9 or 10 at that time. So I'm like,
But think about it. Think about it right now, though. Think about what you're saying, and we're dogging on these new films. Think about the kids that are growing up with these new films right now, and how they're all dressing up as Rey and Kylo Ren, and
That's fair.
doing the exact same thing you did back then.
my little cousin loved dressing up as Kylo Ren when the movie first came out. He went as Kylo Ren like 2 Halloweens in a row.
Hey, I just went as Kylo Ren last Halloween. Sue me.
Surprised me at all, dude.
Yeah,
Didn't you have
sue
to go
me.
that far? Comic-Con.
Yeah.
Yeah, sue me. But I'm just saying, like, we can
yeah.
dog on these movies all we want, but at the end of the day, they still bring what makes Star Wars Star Wars is the amount of happiness they bring people.
Yeah.
And I will always
Absolutely.
be a frontier to that.
Anyway, so yeah, that's my anecdote.
Bonds
Number
is like,
7. It seems number 7 is pretty even because Bilth was only one behind us in this front.
Exactly. We all agree that the prequels are mid, apparently.
I have not
Two
said
thirds.
Revenge of the Sith yet. I have not said Revenge of the Sith yet.
I haven't either.
Me neither.
So let's get there. 6.
Yep.
Number 6, I have The Force Awakens.
What the fuck just happened? What did you do?
Every time he puts up a thumbs up, these fireworks start happening, and it's look.
Can I do that? Why can't I do that? What is happening?
You guys just aren't nearly as cool as me.
No, on number 6, I have The Force Awakens.
Okay, cool, cool.
I have The Force Awakens, so this is kind of what I'm going to get into. I do agree. My biggest complaint about it is a carbon copy of A New Hope. But what I do appreciate about the film...
Wait, this is number 6, Seabass?
This is number 6 for me, yeah.
That's high.
Yeah, I think it's a little high, but let me just tell you. At this point, for me, growing up with the prequels, I had not seen Star Wars now for 10 years. I never thought another Star Wars movie was going to get made until I saw that Disney bought it off of George Lucas for 4 point whatever billion it was. And I got I know, yeah, and I got sucked into this hype train. I did, and a lot of it for me was the hype for the film. They could have shown me the worst Star Wars film ever. I still would have gone and watched that bitch 10 times, which I did. I watched it a disgustingly amount of times in the movie theater. Just everything from the trailers to the film. That's just why I have it so up there, because personally, it lighted up my fire for Star Wars again, like to extreme levels that I hadn't felt since when the prequels were coming out, and I took the visual dictionary to school every day and debated with my friends on what lightsabers look cool, what weapons look cool. Like, we looked at every character page, like, we would talk about it. Like, I had not felt that kind of fire from a kid since then, and then in 2015, it, like, rose up again to a disgusting amount of levels that I was checking Google every single day to see if there was new news about the film that had come out before. Like, that's just what it was, and that's what The Force Awakens is to me, was the relightment, the fire that came back of Star Wars for me, and that is what it is.
Seabass, I had a very similar experience, and I do want to share the antidote that when that movie was new, I was going to AMDA, which is very close to the Chinese theater. And I went on a date one time in like December of the year it came out. I went on a date, and she invited me inside to like spend more time with her. And I was like, my friend invited me to see Star Wars Episode 7, which is playing right now at the Chinese theater. So I'm going to see you a little later. And bro, I did that. That's what I did. I went to Star Wars Episode 7, and I had seen it already. This was my 3rd time seeing it.
Yeah.
That is how much I prioritize this movie. I'm telling you. It was
something. It was a
one.
spectacle. It was a spectacle. It was a spectacle. And that's why I have it kind of high up. Bill, what's your...
Number 6.
Number 6.
Okay, give me 1 minute. Sorry.
As long as we're cutting this, I'm going to take a hit.
Are you changing up your list?
No, I'm not. Number 7, you said?
6. We're on 6.
Number 6. All right.
6, lad.
So my number 6 is Solo, a Star Wars story. So this film is interesting for me. Rogue One is similar because it got reshot to hell. Solo got reshot and it changed directors. It was originally Phil Lord, Chris Miller, the guys that did the Lego movie.
6 is high though. 6 is high for this film, I think.
And I know. I like this movie, and I wish it was the original version. I wish that Phil Lord and Chris Miller got to finish it, honestly. But what we're left with is an interesting adventure film. It's kind of how I feel about the prequels as well. It's just a good encapsulation of the adventure of Star Wars. And whenever I rewatch it, it's a nice ride to go on. It has the Disney problem. Han Solo is less of a character here and more of a person strapping into a roller coaster.
But you can also tell, though, that Alden did try to bring in a fresh take, which was nice.
Oh, totally.
To see.
I think Donald Glover did a serviceable job as
I
Lando.
actually think the opposite. I actually think Donald Glover's Lando was not good.
I
feel
hope he
the
gets to
opposite.
replay the character and like give us more.
I thought his
but-
character was very hyped up before that film came out, and I was a little bit disappointed.
I tempered my
I mean,
expectations,
I feel
and
like
I think
he would
that's
have been
why I
better
appreciate
under
it more.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller because
Yeah,
he's a
maybe.
comedian, and
Maybe,
so
yeah.
are they.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Cool.
I was very excited to see him as Lando, and then I remember being like, wow, that is not how I thought it was going to go in
You
terms
know,
of his
the
character.
one thing about Solo that I didn't like was, and this is a recurring theme for me. I feel like it's different for you, especially Seabass. Where
The tie into Clone
when
Wars
they
at the end.
Yeah, when they connect it to the larger universe, and especially this film was, so I won't speak on this for anything else, but for Solo I will. The end of Solo, they have a scene where fucking Darth Vader,
Darth Maul.
Darth Maul.
yeah, fucking
Jesus,
Darth
Grandpa.
Maul. Jesus, Grandpa. Darth Maul just appears at the end of this movie. And it is the
And to
most
someone who's
blatant-
never watched the shows, they would be very confused.
Like, I thought he died.
My
Yeah,
dad
exactly.
was
It's
upset.
like that guy got cut in half.
My-
And
Yeah.
I know that, and this is the thing that, especially when I first saw it, really made me sick to my actual stomach. Which is when he sits up. He's talking and then he just sits up and he's like, dude, doing the hero stance, doing the weird freaking like.
It's because
hero
you gotta connect the points and see that he has mechanical legs now, basically.
He's got
I mean,
magic
I know
legs.
that part, but it doesn't age well. It's fucking stupid, and having it in the end of this movie dates it for eternity.
It is stupid.
Well, it was their way of connecting it to the universe of what's going on. He is in Clone Wars.
I mean, when you guys say stuff like, I don't know why this is important to the story of Star Wars, this is what I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about, you know what's important to the story of Star Wars? Darth Maul being involved tangentially in some fucking space mob. That's what's important to Star Wars. And no, it's not. A familiar
it's
name
important
being
in the
involved,
show. It's important in the show.
I know, but an important name being involved does not an interesting story make. And the fact that they just put Darth Maul in at the end is the ultimate lazy bullshit. And no wonder they fired the directors that they initially hired. They don't trust vision. They don't trust vision at all. And that's why I think Rian Johnson's directorial work and writing work on Last Jedi is so
Oh, dear God.
singular, is so interesting because he was able to get the whole movie made. Phil Lord and Chris Miller are interesting Hollywood voices. Across the Spider-Verse is their latest project, and guess what? It's doing incredibly well. These are dudes that know what to do when it comes to a franchise, and the fact that Disney couldn't handle their style is just, it's very
Y'all just can't
interesting.
handle my style.
You know,
Y'all
teach
can't handle
to each
this
his own.
style.
I'm sure
mean, I
Ray
suppose,
Park
but-
wasn't complaining.
But that style being so derided, that's not good news for Star Wars as a story. The fact that if you have people that are willing to do improvisation as a part of their directing style, and that's
But you have to
bad
understand too that
according
it's
to
hard.
the
It's hard for them
bosses.
to make films and not tied into the overall storyline, which is what they try to do.
I understand, but it's like, bro, those directors would not have been cool with Darth Maul appearing at the end, and I agree with them. Him appearing at the end served no purpose. All it did was make people in the
Well, I
theater
think
be
it
like,
was also meant to
"Yes,
be like
I've
it was
seen
also,
this man before.
But I think it was also meant to be like a tease for a Han Solo 2 movie that never got made. It was actually
Right.
supposed to be in the plan, and it just never got made because Han Solo didn't do
Did
well
horrible.
domestically in the box office.
Okay, that's another thing. That movie made like millions of dollars. It didn't do well under weird circumstances.
Yeah.
It didn't do well under inflated expectations.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I still to this day wish that we had continued with the model of the spin-off stories are films and not TV shows.
Well, after that film, they completely went away from that. They were like, "Wow, this film spin-off thing's just not working."
D+.
Exactly.
What's that? Talk to me more about that.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, Disney Plus, let's talk, baby."
And then shortly
now
after that, but
everything-
shortly after that, you can't blame them because Mandalorian came out and that proved to be a huge success.
No, I know, but they were going off of numbers. They weren't going off of aesthetics. Like whatever the numbers were at, that's what they followed.
And
in terms
by
of
then
aesthetics-
also the merchandise was lacking a lot in the sequel films and up to Solo. The Mandalorian actually revived the merchandise in Star Wars. Like 90% of the merchandise you see now is something Grogu or Mando related.
I mean, it's true, but also the merchandise never faltered. Disney alone,
It definitely, like,
the Disney parks alone.
The
are responsible
the
for so
figurines
much.
in Force Awakens and Last Jedi were the least like selling toys for Star Wars has ever had for any movie, but that's also because we're with the times now and kids don't look to play with action figures as much anymore. It's
right.
iPad babies now.
And also everything changed. It was Disney redirected the companies that were responsible for making this merch, whereas historically you had companies that were experienced in making Star Wars merchandise. So the fact that they changed it so dramatically. Yeah.
Barnes, number
But,
6.
Yeah, that's my entry, man. That's my number 7?
6.
Yeah, that's my number 6 is Solo, a Star Wars story. I like it. I hope that Lando Calrissian comes back and that he's played by Donald Glover. I don't agree with Sebastian's explanation that Donald Glover performance is insufficient.
I thought he
actually
was
really
wonderfully
enjoyed
cast. I was just a little bit
My number 6
disappointed.
is Rogue One.
it. Ah,
Hey.
nice.
another spinoff.
Yeah, I know. We have the similar mindsets, everybody. It's just you guys are a little bit wrong in your placement of which one you're placing.
You hate
you're
The Last
so close.
Jedi a little bit too much.
So close.
And it makes me feel weird.
It hates me.
It does. I feel like I'm sorry. This is a point I'm going to make about The Last
I'm
Jedi.
gonna get a cookie because that was upsetting. I'll be back.
The Last Jedi spits in the face of fans who were interested in what The Force Awakens was setting up.
Oh my god.
J.J. Abrams spit on his own face harder than Ryan Johnson spit on his.
This is I'm starting to agree with what Bilt is saying, that we are putting too much blame on Ryan and not on JJ, and this is very apparent now.
Thank you.
Because this man did ask, he started this conversation in Force Awakens, and I think he spit out random questions that had no essence in them, in my opinion.
didn't
And I
matter
think
how
what Ryan
interesting the
Johnson tried to
questions
do, was ask questions that actually had, essence and gravitas, and they were filled, and it was also risk taking, right, as well, and it was fresh. Yeah. I don't know.
He just demonstrated an understanding that is lacking in episodes 7 and 9. Like,
Yeah.
the Yoda dialogue alone, he actually understood what he was talking about, and he got
Yes.
one of the trickiest characters in Star Wars to sound like himself again for the first time since
Yeah.
1983. It was wild, dude.
He clearly did his homework when it came to the Yoda stuff. He clearly did his homework understanding that character, because he did.
Who's first for 5?
I haven't said my number 6 yet. I'm waiting on
Oh,
Barnes.
yeah. What's your number 6, Condor?
I'm waiting on Barnes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my number 6 is Rogue One. This movie
Okay.
is
Wow.
this movie is
Honestly,
not,
I think you have it higher than I thought you would.
in terms of
Especially considering that personal anecdote, you have this pretty high.
yeah.
okay, considering my personal anecdote. However, I will say I enjoy, like, it's by the time, like, the last 40 minutes of the movie, like the first half of this movie, or the first 2/3 of this movie put me to sleep, and then the last 40 minutes kind of wake me up and revive me. And this is probably the most mid Star Wars movie. This is the mid Star Wars movie. The mid Star Wars movie, in my opinion.
That's crazy.
It's the most middle of the road.
Do you guys know? I don't know if you guys know about the fandom, but in general, that's a hot take, and Rogue One is actually high in the fandom overall.
I know, and I
Yeah.
knew
Well, I
that was
know,
going
and
to.
honestly, I think that for someone that doesn't fully subscribe to it, it hasn't been mentioned by anyone other than me so far, and I think that even though you're critical of it, it's pretty high for you, Condor.
Yeah, well, it's like, I mean, like, I don't put The Last Jedi high on my list because I am very hypercritical of it, but I respect the movie and I respect what it tries to do. But I just don't agree with I don't agree with the execution of it. Honestly, I think is what it comes down to.
Are you talking about? Is this for Rogue One?
It's for The Last Jedi, but Rogue One,
Oh.
I also don't agree with the execution of it because it's trying to make me care about a bunch of characters who feel like a bunch of non-characters. And that, again, that goes back to
Right.
Bill's point about the Disney model being the main characters in Star Wars are now just blank slate placeholders for the audience to go on the ride. It is a theme park ride. Rogue One is the most mid theme park ride of Star Wars. Number 5, Seabass.
My number 5 is Rogue One.
Ah.
All right.
So
I feel like
Anything to add,
we're
Sebastian?
so close.
for me, Rogue One, I think once again,
It's good enough
you
to be in
guys
your top
don't share.
5.
It's good to be enough to be in my top 5. You guys don't agree with my points on it, but I think it's once again, it was the first spin-off that came out that kind of left the main storyline a little bit, and it was a side story within the main storyline. So we get introduced to these side characters, and I just think it's hard to make a good film with side characters from the get-go. You're already at a disadvantage. So the fact that I think, in my opinion, that they were able to turn out a movie that, in my opinion, was very decent, is a win in itself, and that's all I'm gonna say about it. And I really and it is the first time we get to see a truly just only a female-led Star Wars film. Really, I know that Rey leads The Force Awakens, but she's, Kylo Ren's a main character too, right? And Han and
Finn.
and Finn and all them. But this is like Jyn Erso's story and Jyn Erso's story only. And I think
Andor has been in this fight since he was 6 years old.
I mean, that's why he got his own show, because he wasn't main character enough, I guess, in the film.
Oh,
But in my opinion, I think Jyn is written very well and is a good start to a female-led Star Wars story that I think was needed. That's kind of why I like it. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
my
My number
five.
5 is... So this is the first entry of the original trilogy on my list. And interestingly, this was number 1 on my last list.
Wow,
Which
it
you
went
won't get to
down
see.
5 spots.
It went down 5 spots. That is Return of the Jedi.
Interesting.
Originally, Revenge of the Jedi.
Originally.
Which honestly, to
But
this
George
day, I
Lucas
still think
found
it
out
should
he
be the
could
name.
save $916 on ink annually when he printed one less letter on merchandise. Sorry,
Oh my
that's
God.
a direct
Revenge of
quote.
the Jedi?
That's a direct quote from the Mr. Plinkett reviews.
That's really funny. I mean, it's true. Revenge of the Jedi is such a better title. How did they do that?
Because that's not what the Jedi do not seek vengeance.
he deemed it too aggressive.
No, I know, but
Yeah.
those posters, and it was released in
But
foreign
listen, if he
countries
did
as
Revenge of the
Jedi.
if he did Revenge of the Jedi, he wouldn't have been able to do Revenge of the Sith, and that just
The
makes
reason that it's
way
number
more
5,
sense.
the reason that's number 5 is because it's not called Revenge of the Jedi. That makes it just
Well,
it's
mine
not happening
is,
anymore. But yeah, so Revenge of the Jedi, Return of the Jedi, it was number 1 when we first shot this episode. Now it's number 5, and that's because. So, here we go. Return of the Jedi is the first movie that, when it comes to older Star Wars fans, so my dad is a primo Star Wars fan. The first one came out when he was 12 years old.
Is he
was
a primo
always
Star
primed.
Wars fan, or is he a primo original trilogy fan? Because there is a difference, and I think you misunderstand that sometimes.
There is a difference.
Yes.
And it is fair that he's seen every Star Wars movie, but he likes the first 3 the best.
Of course.
But he was 12 years old when the original Star Wars came out. And when it comes to Return of the Jedi, it was the first one that when I watched it for the first time, my father warned me, and he was like, to be honest, it's not as good as the other 2. So don't get your hopes too high. because otherwise you might be disappointed. So you just go in with a fresh mind. Don't think too much about the other ones. And after watching it, I know what he meant, because Return of the Jedi, I think, is the first time, and this happens a lot down the line, this is the first Star Wars that has video game syndrome. This whole Star Wars movie is a video game.
I don't agree.
Story is.
I don't agree at all.
All right. But I'm saying it's the first time where it felt like the set pieces were loosely woven together, where they had a generalization of like, all right, so we start with Jabba's palace. It's a sweet, sweet, sweet action scene. And then after that, we go to the forest moon of Endor.
That is
like,
literally,
was,
you can make that same argument for Empire. You start in Hoth, an ice planet, and then you go to Cloud City, a cloud planet, and then you end up,
okay, so the difference between good and weak Star Wars stories is how well they justify the set pieces, which I know that's cynical. It is how I feel after watching them as a 27-year-old for the first time all the way through. I think that the set piece justification is half of the way that you design a Star Wars. And when it comes to Return of the Jedi, it's the first time for me personally where the set pieces are not as clearly justified as they could be. In fact, the fact that you have a whole second Death Star, have you guys watched that scene where Lando and Chewie and Akbar are like descending upon the new Death Star? It is incredibly tedious. It's an incredibly tedious scene. And the way that they get to the core of the ship, so video gamey. The weak spot. They got to the weak spot. It's clearly illustrated. Let's shoot the heart of this glowing big thingy. Everything about it is so video game-ish. And my favorite part is the rapport between Vader, the Emperor, and Luke. Everything that has to do with that, perfect. This is Ian McDermott's first turn as the Emperor, and baby, his character is so good.
You're telling me you don't miss goggled up Emperor? From the original?
He filmed a part for Empire eventually, but the original theatrical cut, some random British actor with
and it's funny too because the part he films for Empire is the Revenge of the Sith Palpatine look when he records it. Yeah.
And that wasn't even made until 2004. That was when Revenge of the Sith was in production that they shot that.
Yep.
But my whole thing, I love episode 6. I truly, sincerely do. It is in my top 5 for a reason. But I do feel like in terms of the top 5 that I have for Star Wars, it is the weakest in terms of justifying its plot with its set pieces. The Jabba Palace scene, ooh, so good. The Sarlacc pit, yes. Lando being in disguise, the nods, the lightsaber fight, like on the sky, on those transports. Ooh, it is so good, man. I love that opening so much. But in terms of like justifying the set pieces, it's the weakest in my opinion. And this is my last point. Harrison Ford checked out for this movie.
I agree.
He thought he was going to die.
We talked about this off camera.
He was going to die.
Not that he thought. He requested it. He requested it. He wanted to, because he thought it would be more beneficial to his character, and he finally got it in Force Awakens after begging. He probably begged again. But I agree. He did not want to be there and film that. He did not want to be there.
The worst part is that you can actually tell.
Yeah,
you can't always tell when an actor is doing something against their will.
10,000%.
But for Harrison Ford in episode 6, he is miserable. And after the electricity that he provided the first 2 movies, it's deeply noticeable, and it ruins a lot of rewatches for me. How
I agree.
Dead Harrison Ford is for the entire runtime. But other than that, amazing set pieces. Jabba's palace, amazing. The forest moon of Endor, incredible. The land speeders, awesome. The little laser things that are tiny walkers, incredible. But the movie, it doesn't stand up as much, and I've demoted it from number 1 on my original list to
I
number
can't
5.
believe you had that at number 1. I'm shocked. That's crazy.
I mean, it always changes. That Emperor scene carries a lot of weight, and I still feel that right now. The Emperor scenes, they carry so much weight. In fact, you're the one that talked about Star Wars' story
Yeah.
and how if a movie meaningfully contributes to the overall lore, that makes the movie worth watching. And that was the mindset that I was on when I first put it number 1. But after rewatching it, definitely number 5 for me.
Bonds.
5. 5 is The Force Awakens.
Dang,
That's-
that's high.
That's
high.
high.
Wow,
Yeah.
top
High praise.
5. Really?
Can you give me like a brief? I'm kind of interested to why it's so high for you.
It's mid-road. It is the literal least of the best.
Well, yeah, this is the
Bottom
beginning
of the top
5.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right. I'll take it. The beginning of my top 5. Number 5 on my list is Solo, a Star Wars story.
That is high.
That has not
Wow.
changed. That has not changed for me. When you guys bring up the point of bringing in a very like grounded Star Wars movie, this movie, in my opinion, does it better than Rogue One because it has elements of that gritty ground warfare of like the Imperial like grunts who didn't
Yeah.
make the cut for Stormtrooper, but it also has a lot of lighthearted fun. It's like a fun adventure
Yeah.
space western jaunt through the Star Wars universe. I think
Completely, yes.
yeah, I agree.
I love the characterization that Han and Chewbacca get. Like the whole reason Chewbacca didn't eat Han is because Han understands a little bit of the Wookiee language, and he's like,
Yeah.
"Wait, no, please."
Yeah, yeah.
and also I feel like it enriches Han Solo's character because like. Of course, he's younger. He's not as jaded as he is in like A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back, because he's trying to run from his problem. But here, he's like, I'm a go-getter. I want to give me a problem to deal with, kind of thing. Like he craves the adventure. And then by the time we meet him in A New Hope, he's like, listen, kid, I'm trying to keep my head down and I'm trying to survive. Kind of deal. So I like the juxtaposition of a young Han Solo and the idea that he was once a romantic person who like he wanted to pursue, like he was more in touch with his emotions in that way. And also the way he obtains the Millennium Falcon is such a
great.
Star
It's
Wars
great.
Han
It's
Solo
great.
Lando.
It's great.
Yeah.
And it really gives weight to the fact that, you know, how they talk about in Empire how he lost it fair and square to him. I love it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, yeah.
That
And-
film just unfortunately just suffered an oversaturation of Star Wars films, and it came out at the wrong time.
Yeah, I think
And
so
it had
too.
too generic a voice. If it was completed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, I think it would fare much better.
Yeah, probably. And I also I have to admit, Darth Maul being in that movie is dumb, and it makes me upset every time I see his dumb face. It's only dumb in the movie. Like I like
I'm glad to hear you feel that way as well.
anywhere else. Maul. I love Maul, but in that movie, did not need him. It was superfluous.
And I'm also just to shove that aside, I'm just really sad that we don't get to see more of Kira because I thought she was a very interesting character.
I think, Han having a love interest before Leia makes a ton of sense. The
Yeah,
fact
for
that
sure.
I love that his mission was like, I got to go back home. I got to get a ship, go back
Yeah.
home, learn how to be a pilot,
Yeah.
save my girl, and then, they both did what they had to do to survive.
Yeah, 100%.
And especially in a war-torn galaxy where like survival is not certain for anybody. So yeah, that's my number 5 is Solo.
Okay.
I didn't talk about that as much as I should have. Kira's an incredible character. Amelia Clark's performance
so.
is
She
actually
killed
pretty
it.
good.
She killed it.
Incredibly iconic,
She killed
honestly.
it. And it's
the
really
fact
sad
she
that
didn't
she'll
return
never be able
is-
to revisit that character. It's sad.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a bummer. That
But I
was
know,
a
never
very
say never.
well-developed
Maybe in a
character.
TV show or something they bring Never Say Never, you know?
I mean, Disney has.
We
the
know well
resources,
enough
so-
with Disney and Star Wars that they can do that. Okay, I just want to preface, by the way, and just say that I think I'm the only one out of you four that my top 5 has a film from every era. I have a spin-off, I have a prequel film, I have a sequel film, and I have the original trilogy film in my top 5. So I just want to go ahead and say that I appreciate every era of Star Wars. And I am a true fan.
That's
Yeah.
completely true. That's completely true for me as well. Seabass.
Yeah. Oh, you got perfect. Yeah, I'm just saying
There's
something
one of every era.
that
in
just
my
goes
top
to
5.
show that there is a film you can appreciate in every era of Star Wars, in my opinion, for better or for worse. Okay, but my number 4
I agree with that.
my number 4 is Return of the Jedi. So I have it like kind of right there where you guys have it. For the same reasons that Bill gave it. I think it has a tremendous weight, especially that throne room scene is such a rewatchable scene because the manipulation that the Emperor shows is what his best thing is to do, is manipulating people. That is why we watch the Emperor do what he does, and how he tries to manipulate both Vader and Luke at the same time is exquisite, and I love watching that throne room scene all the time. It's great. I think I do agree with Bill in terms of the set pieces feel a little bit more not as weighted. I'm not going to say video gamey because I don't really agree with that, but I do feel like they don't hold as much weight as the set pieces from Empire, for example, or even the 2 set pieces they show in A New Hope. I even think they're better because they're more essential to the story. But I do think that the biggest flaw with that film is Harrison Ford being checked out. He did not want to be there. And it does. It ruins the film sometimes, because how do you go from having such good banter and quality of character in episode 5, even the hallway scene in episode 5 where he's telling Leia that she has feelings for him. He's like you have feelings for me, and he's like come on, like tell me. Like, you don't see that spark in Harrison Ford's performance in Return of the Jedi. It lacks for sure, and he doesn't want to be there.
Right.
And it really downgrades the film a lot, in my opinion.
It's so intense that it comes right after how
Yep.
good his character work is in episode 5.
Yep. That is my biggest flaw about Return of the Jedi, is always Harrison Ford's performance in it. And Luke, and I think it's the opposite for Luke, because I think Luke comes into his own in that film, and I think that is Luke's, I don't know, best performance, because his performance in Empire is really good too. But I love Luke being a Jedi Luke sort of thing. It's great. Anyways, that's my 4.
I agree.
It's my number 4.
Cool.
It is also my number 4. And it's for the reasons you just said. It's the first time we get to see fully realized Jedi Luke. But
Wait, what's Bill's number 4?
Oh, my number 4 is Revenge of the Sith.
Hey, that's my number 4.
Ah, there we go. Well, my reasoning for it is so Revenge of the Sith, my favorite of the prequel trilogy. I think it's really good.
Yeah.
I think that it's got if it was a sandwich, it would be the best crusted sandwich that ever existed. The bread, the opening, the ending, oh baby. The middle of that movie it's on the level of episodes 1 and 2. It's a prequel movie, you know?
Yeah, it's slow,
right.
It's poorly paced.
I will say it is not as slow as the first and second one.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
and rewatching it with you guys, I'm like, but also at the same time, I was able to enjoy that movie much more. Instead of me sitting by myself and watching it, I was able to enjoy it more because we were kind of ignoring all of the boring bits.
Because we were kind of only talking about the best parts. We were focusing on the best parts of the film.
Yeah.
Right. I do agree with that. That was something
question.
I noticed last time we rewatched this as a group, is that it was able to soften the blows of the bad pacing, because like the rest of the prequel trilogy, not paced the best.
Bill, I still have a question for you. You mentioned off the episode, off stream or whatever you want to call it, that you think Revenge of the Sith would be better as a 3-season, 24 episodes project. Do you still agree with that?
So that wasn't Revenge of the Sith. That was the entire prequel trilogy.
Oh, okay.
I believe that you could. Okay, so the story that we're presented in those 3 movies is incredibly insular. It's incredibly vague. The story that's actually going on is in the background of those films. I feel like if you were able to take the current Disney mechanism, the current Disney budget, and the current Disney distribution system, which is Disney Plus limited series, and you made a 3-season show, 8 episodes each. Each season is one of the prequel stories. You got one for Phantom Menace, one for Attack of the Clones, one for Revenge of the Sith.
Would you completely redo the stories, or have the same plot that
No,
have already
no,
been
no.
shown?
The stories would be kind of similar, but they would differentiate a little bit. So for example, something that I have talked about, which I feel like would improve them 1,000,000,000%. General Grievous is a reoccurring villain, but each time he appears, he's a bit less organic than previous. So when he first appears, he's mostly human, and he has these breathing mechanisms that help his
I
diaphragm.
want Condor to say this so
operate.
bad.
What if, like, instead of Maul, what if we had Grievous, and that's the first thing that gets cut off is Grievous's legs? Obi-Wan cuts off Grievous's legs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a little
Exactly,
silly,
like,
though, if he was the main villain
Grievous-
every season, but it's like a more mutilated villain every time? That's
Well,
kind of
I'm
silly.
not saying
Well,
he's the main
it
villain.
would
I'm
mirror-
saying he's a villain, and we see him generally dismantled as a person to
And
kind of mimic what's happening to Anakin spiritually.
It would mirror what happens to Anakin. It's like poetry; it rhymes. It would. I think.
yes.
I think it would be a really.
I think people would find
good
that a
take.
little cheesy.
But Star
would be
Wars
like-
is
I mean,
cheesy.
No, they wouldn't until they talked about it in context. If you're watching the actual series, over the course of 24 episodes, a man decays into a robot. That would be very plausible.
I mean, yeah, just watching the visualization of watching someone lose their humanity. Yes, okay, I can agree to that, but I don't know.
I'm just saying, if we remade the whole thing into a 24 episode miniseries with today's budget, it would be good.
But
You
would
say
it
it would
get
be-
today's budget?
You say it would be cheesy, but Star Wars is cheesy. Star Wars is.
That's the thing about Star Wars that I try to not view the cheesiness in Star Wars.
Well, then you're denying an
Then you're
integral part
denying
of.
yourself.
But then again,
Only a Sith deals in
an
absolute.
absolute. All right. Anyways, who's next? Who's number 4? Oh yeah.
Yeah, everyone. Yeah,
It's
so
top 3 now.
yeah,
It's
it's-
you.
Everyone's like, oh, okay. My 3 is The Last Jedi.
Oh.
And my number 3 is The Last Jedi for reasons that I'm not going to get into again because we're
All
going
right,
to talk
someone
about
else's
this.
3. Michael.
All right, so my 3 is.
Oh my
The
God,
Last
Bonds,
Jedi.
chill.
And it's number 3 for reasons that we won't get into right now. Who's got the number 1?
Oh, yours is also the Last Jedi for number 3.
Oh,
Mine is
God.
actually The Last Jedi. I feel like of the
High
prequel
five, Bill.
trilogy.
High five, Bill.
I mean, yeah, dude, high five. I feel like when it comes to the sequel trilogy, The Last Jedi is it's my highest rated sequel trilogy entry. It's the one that actually answers questions, asks questions about Star Wars that I feel like are valuable.
Yes.
I know you guys don't agree. I'm just saying that to me, it's the best made sequel trilogy by a mile.
Yes.
And whenever I hear anyone like call it one of the worst Star Wars movies, I am gasp and
I
appalled.
mean, I guess that's why we'll go into it
Another
at
time.
another time.
All right,
So,
Barnes,
3,
number 3.
Force is a Force Awakens, but it's actually the it's the 80s version. It's a New Hope.
The 80s. cut
The
of
70s version. 70s version.
It's
70s
79. It's so 80s.
It's 77
it's
actually.
ahead of its
77.
time.
1977.
It's fine. I'm
Fake
tired.
Star Wars fan. Okay, my number
Everyone's
Yeah,
a fake
yeah.
Star Wars fan in their own
It's a
way.
New Hope.
my number 3 is Return of the Jedi.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's I'm an Ewok defender. I'm sorry
Gross.
to say.
So am I,
It's because
So am
I understand where George Lucas was coming from. It's like it's their home terrain.
Gotta give something to the kids, bro.
It's the
Yeah, we have to make
okay, yeah,
toys.
because Star Wars is made for children and it was made to sell toys. But I'm saying from a thematic and narrative standpoint, it is the underdog overcoming. It's David versus Goliath kind of deal. These tiny, non-threatening teddy bears taking on a force so much greater than them. That's all I'm going to say. That's my defense of the Ewoks. Moving on. Number 2, Seabass.
My number 2 is Empire Strikes Back. And I will preface by saying, I think that it is the best Star Wars movie. I think it is the best written, best visual, best acted. I think it is the number 1 Star Wars movie. It is just not my personal favorite Star Wars movie. But it could be. It very well could be. I'm just saying. Empire Strikes number 2 for obvious reasons. I think it's one of the best sequel films of all time. Not just in Star Wars. I just think of all time. I think it rivals maybe The Godfather 2. You know, in that era, in that echelon of sequel films that usually are not very good, but that very small class of films, I think is the best sequel film of all time. I think it shows us why Vader is one of the best villains in film history of all time. Quite easily, quite frankly, you know. I don't have to get into why that is, because it's kind of apparent and obvious. I think it has, at the time, the biggest film twist of all time. When people didn't know, imagine being in that theater, watching that scene for the first time, and imagine the reaction to that. I just wish
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, Luke is his son. Not that. If people flame me
Not a
for that,
real
then I'm sorry.
spoiler.
I
Sorry,
don't.
not sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sorry one bit. Where have you been living? Even people who live in Antarctica know that Darth Vader's his father.
That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. When
Yeah.
Lauren is in the room and I start talking about Star Wars.
Okay, that's different. These sequel films just came out a couple years ago. We're
Yeah,
talking about
yeah,
a film that came out in 1980, whatever.
Oh my God, Seabass! The most recent sequel film came out 5 years ago.
2019. 2019.
Yeah, it's 2024.
That's nowhere near. How can you compare that allotted amount of time to a 1980s film?
5
I'd
years,
say 5
50
years
years,
is a good
apples,
amount of time.
oranges.
5 years is a long time, Seabass. I'm just saying.
And I'm just saying, she also said, to not spoil anything, she hasn't seen him, and you guys just couldn't contain yourselves. So I'm just saying. Okay, that's my number
Sorry,
2.
Lauren.
Have you guys been watching this episode? Of course we can't contain ourselves. What the fuck?
All right, that's my number 2.
My number 2 is A New Hope.
Hey, that's my number 2.
Yeah, I feel like in retrospect, my number 2 is pretty obvious, but I mean, my number 1 and 2 are pretty obvious. But
Well,
A New Hope, I swear to God, man, I've seen this movie more times than any other movie in the series. And it is just the perfectly paced Hollywood film. Everything about it is just, it's perfect. It's perfect.
It's the perfect Star Wars movie.
I have a hard time not viewing it as perfect, to be honest. And honestly, Seabass, the way that you said that Wizard of Oz is badly paced kind of murders me a little bit. Because I feel like this movie and Wizard of
no,
Oz
I
are in the
didn't.
same
I didn't say.
camp.
I didn't say it was badly paced. I said it was just a very dated movie, and it just doesn't entertain me.
I
But
mean,
A
I
New Hope
suppose,
is
but its
timeless.
effects are better than
It wouldn't
anything we have
entertain me.
today.
A New Hope is timeless. That's why they made it again in 2016.
Right, exactly. A New Hope is truly timeless. It's a perfectly paced movie. It really is in every single way.
2015, you
And-
fake Star Wars fan.
Fake Star Wars fan.
I was waiting for it. I know, man.
Anyways,
But I just love A New Hope. A New Hope really is perfect. Its scenes are perfect. Its set pieces are perfect. The way the story is justified. For once in Star Wars history, is the story actually justified in piecing together these set pieces.
but also it had an unfair advantage in which it thought it was going to be the only film at the time. So let's look at it a bit technically here, where it didn't know it had a bunch of other films coming. Things might have been different if it knew that beforehand.
I mean, to be honest, George Lucas wrote it as one story, and then they had to cut it into 3 movies. So he kind of did know that there were
And he
going to be
did-
at least 2 sequels.
If he didn't know that there were going to be sequels, then why did he get in his contract that he had all the rights to make the sequels?
Well, he did that because he probably thought that he was like, but there's no way this is going to happen, right? Because there's no way people are going to watch a movie like this. Because at the time,
I mean, that
it was
is
just
completely true, and
it was a big risk.
That explains a lot of the deals that he made. For example, we keep talking about merchandising. Do you know that he gave the merchandising rights to his best friend because
you're just
knew?
like, who cares? This isn't gonna happen. Like, here, you can have the merchandise
Well,
right.
it's like this isn't gonna happen, but if
Yeah.
it does, you know who should benefit? My best friend, because
Yeah.
I'll be making enough money. So my best friend should get
Shouldn't.
the money from the merchandise. And guess who still has a deal with Disney? Steven Spielberg, because he got the freaking merchandise revenue for half of this stuff when he thought that it wasn't going to make any money.
Well, Universal should have paid up more for Steven.
Number
I mean,
two,
it's
Barnes?
true, but So number 2, New Hope.
Empire
Alright.
Strikes Back for me.
Okay.
It's
Alright.
Road 2.
I think our 1 and 2 is this. Me and Bonds is 1 and 2 are the same.
I think we realized that the last time we shot this.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, we tried doing this one other time. It didn't work out.
It's been referenced before.
Yeah.
Don't spoil it.
My number 2 is A New Hope. Pretty much for all the reasons Bill said. It's the perfect Star Wars movie.
Let me preface this once more time. It does not upset me that you guys have it that high. It's not iconic.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's iconic. I think it's the perfect representation of the hero's journey in our time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just one heck of a romp. Number ones. Oh, actually, well. So
should we do the honorable mentions?
So our honorable mention system is a little different since there aren't enough movies to do an honorable mention. We're doing any piece of extracurricular Star Wars media, canon or otherwise, that we love.
The last time we shot this, I said Clone Wars, but I'm actually going to change it this time. I do love Clone Wars, but I'm actually going to change it to a video game, and it's The Force Unleashed, actually, as well.
And then just go straight into your number 1 after your...
And then my number 1, I mean, The Force Unleashed really quick because I think it's, at the time when that game came out, the hype for that game, I had not seen a Star Wars game like this before, ever even attempted. Finally, we got to see a Star Wars game where you could truly be creative with your Force abilities. And to me, that was so intriguing and so much fun, in my opinion. And also, the story was just fantastic. Ugh, I wish we had a story like that in canon. But unfortunate that it's not. But who's to say they won't bring this guy back? Sam Witwer's amazing. I love him. My number 1 is Revenge of the Sith. It is my personal favorite Star Wars movie of all time. I will never forget watching that movie in the theater in 2005, and I cried. I cried for a very long time. There was everything I wanted Star Wars to be when I was a kid, and I was obsessed with Star Wars already by this point, but that just truly solidified to me that it was my favorite piece of media of all time was Star Wars, and it's because of Revenge of the Sith. And Anakin became my favorite character of all time. Anakin is my favorite Star Wars character because the tragedy that he goes through is just, I don't know, it hits me every time. And that's
Beautiful.
it. That's my number 1.
My honorable mention. So I need to actually preface this. I love The Force Unleashed. I was a huge fan of God of War when that series was new. Force Unleashed is basically the developers being like, ooh, we should make a God of War game, but you know what would be sweet if he was a Jedi.
Yeah.
So it's God of War with a Jedi. It's perfect. Quick time events, cool animations, rampaging across the Star Wars universe. You're beating walkers, you're beating mini walkers, you're beating starships, you're beating stormtroopers, snow troopers, death troopers, every trooper. It's
my god, that level where
game.
you're bringing down the starship from the Star Cruisers from space. Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, it was great.
So cool.
It was great.
Force Unleashed reached a new level of just playing
Yeah.
You were playing with the Star Wars universe in a way that didn't seem possible before, and just watching it happen, oh my god.
Yeah, I agree.
Just so sweet. There's two versions of the game. There's the HD, there's the SD version. Both versions
Go
are
watch
sweet.
go watch Land World to see us talk about that game more in specific.
Yeah, if you're interested in video game Star Wars talk, we have a whole episode about it. Go check it out. It's called Land World, episode 2. Go check it out. But yeah, honorable mention, Force Unleashed, definitely. I agree with you, Sebas. My number one is the most obvious number one in the whole wide world. It's Empire.
Yeah.
I feel bad having this be number one because it's so obvious, but also I rewatched the original cut of Empire last night. So of all these movies, it is the most recent in my mind. And, you know, you're talking about how much you love which character is your favorite, Seabass? Which one do you just talk about?
Anakin.
Yeah, Seabass, you're talking about how much you love Anakin. My favorite Star Wars character is the way that Yoda appears in episode 5.
So great.
Yoda is such a good character in episode 5, and everything he says is just so cutting to what Star Wars is already. And the fact that it's the first sequel is unbelievable. It's commenting so much on what we know Star Wars to be, and there is literally only one other movie.
Do you know what I miss about Yoda's character that they took away in the prequels that actually kind of angers me sometimes about the prequels is they took away his silliness. And that made Yoda
Exactly.
so interesting to me, was that he was wise but didn't take himself too seriously. And that's what I liked about Yoda, especially in 5. Like
They
the
tried
first
giving
beginning
that back
scene,
to him in the Clone Wars show.
Yeah, like the first beginning scene where he's
in
just like,
Last
let
Jedi,
go.
which it worked.
The little tug with R2 and he starts hitting him with his stick. He's like, get off! Like, it's amazing. It's amazing. Amazing.
I mean, speaking of craftsmanship, the original trilogy has such a and also the prequel trilogy by extension has such a large level of craftsmanship that when it comes to Yoda in particular, he's voiced by Frank Oz, who worked with the Muppets. He's made by the Muppet Factory. He's a Muppet. Yoda is a Muppet.
Yeah.
He is Jim Henson directed. He is implanted from another like brand of craftsmanship into Star Wars. And by the way, I mean, you know, to be honest, Condor, I'm coming for you right now. When it comes to The Last Jedi, you talk about how it's implausible, how it doesn't feel like it doesn't
Star
have
Wars.
the weight, how it doesn't feel like Star Wars. Episode 5 starts with the goofiest thing in the world where Luke is just like, yeah, bro, I'll stay out here in this snowstorm because I'm trying to find something. And then he faints and then he gets hit by the Cookie Monster, essentially. The way that the cinematography is done with that snow monster, he's the Cookie Monster, bro. He is the most Muppet figure I have ever seen.
He is.
It's literally a full head going like, rah, rah, and then he hits him with his super long limbs in a separate insert shot. It is the most slapstick, Muppet, weird bullshit ever.
Necessity.
But the stakes.
The mother of
Are you sure you didn't watch the Family Guy version?
Mama.
Okay, fair. But the Family Guy version makes a really good point because these guys are Muppety as fuck in this first movie. Like, oh my God, man. That Wampa monster and then Yoda. Yoda is a Muppet in the first movie, and that's what makes him so fucking compelling.
Not the thumbs up like bubble that just appeared by your head.
The the way that so like Yoda in this movie is a completely different character. And the fact that he's a weird Muppet that in actuality is a Jedi Master is a huge part of this movie's appeal.
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
guy is so goofy looking. And by the way, we're going to talk about this in a minute. The reason that I'm so in favor of release order is this is one of the big reasons. If you think that Yoda is Yoda the first time you watch him, everything loses meaning. When I first watched this movie, I hadn't seen the prequels. So Yoda being Yoda was so surprising to me. And when he gets that freaking X-Wing out, or Y-Wing.
It's an
when
X-Wing.
he gets that Y-Wing out
an
of
X-Wing.
the swamp. Oh, it is an X-Wing?
Yeah.
It's an X-Wing. It's an X-Wing.
Oh, whoops. When he gets that X-Wing out of the swamp. Oh, like, guys, that is you cannot replace that. You cannot recreate that.
They
Yoda
do in The
being
Rise
a
of Skywalker.
Muppet.
They recreate it in The Rise of Skywalker.
Exactly, and it sucks. Yoda being that. Yoda being a Muppet that turns out to be one of the most legendary Jedi in existence. You cannot recreate that. And the way that plays out in episode 5 is just one of its many strengths.
Didn't they
That
recreate that in
movie-
Spaceballs?
Oh my god. All right. Number
Ignoring
2
that.
or number 1,
Episode
Barnes.
5 is absolutely incredible, and like it just cannot be recreated today. And the fact that they get owned at every single major story point, they just get swapped down. Luke's like naivete is used against him. I do agree with you on this point, Condor, that Rey is not as easily developed in the fact that they are afraid to make her weak. With Luke, they're not afraid to make him weak. And the way that they make him accidentally defend his friends, they use his willingness to defend his friends as a weakness.
All right, I'm
Beautiful.
sorry. That is beautiful. You are really pixelating and cutting out, so I'm going
Both
to
of
cut
you
you off.
are.
You're
Yeah, everyone is. Everyone is for me. Everyone is just like going crazy,
All right.
pixelated, and like.
Barnes, your turn.
Yeah, my number 1 is... It's gonna be Revenge of the Sith.
You don't have an honorable
It's
mention?
gonna be... my honorable mention? It was, Well, I'm not gonna tell you what it was. I'm just gonna let you be a mystery, but I'll tell you what it is. It's gonna be the first season of Mandalorian.
That's a good
Wow.
one.
Let me say something about that really quickly. Lauren thinks it's really bad, the first season. Yeah. Lauren does not think the first season of Mandalorian is good.
It's not.
I think it's a good,
You
good
just
space
lost points,
western.
Lauren.
She says it's very boring.
She must not like westerns. Or good storytelling. Or,
Dang.
Or stuff that's
Hey,
just
don't
cool
blame
as
my
shit.
girl like that.
All right.
No, yeah, she does not.
I
She
mean,
does not.
or,
I
or
complete-
Clint Eastwood.
I completely agree. The Mandalorian is not very good, and everyone that thinks it's good was fooled by aesthetics.
How dare you?
Okay, guy who was just going on a rant about how the
we should have had
prequels
for Boba Fett.
aesthetics made them good. No.
The
you don't
prequels
get- you don't-
aesthetics did make them good. The Mandalorian's aesthetics were easily disproven by Andor existing.
I didn't even watch Andor because they couldn't make me care about Andor. Sorry.
Ooh, I mean that's honestly fair story-wise, but aesthetics-wise, you should watch it because it makes the Mandalorian look it makes the
All right,
Mandalorian
who's
look
next?
unacceptable.
Hit
I
me.
honorable mentioned Condor.
Honorable mention is 2005 Battlefront 2, the video game. It is not
Yeah.
canon, but it makes me feel like I am participating in the Clone War. It makes
Yeah.
me like it puts me on the battlefield. I have to decide where my troops go. I have to decide when to deploy my garrison, when to give my troops their back to tank serum. I have to decide when I'm going to deploy a jet trooper versus a clone commando.
It's the best Star Wars game of all time.
It's the best Star Wars video game, and anyone can fight me on that, and I'll win.
Once again, go watch
I mean,
Land World
I'm a-
because our
I'm a
episode in
single-player
Land
boy.
World, is exclusively about Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Yeah,
Go watch
it. It's a
If
good
you want to hear about
video
Star
game.
Wars Battlefront 2, please watch the newest episode of Land World, now
Watch-
airing every Wednesday.
In case you didn't hear that, watch Land World. And my number 1 is The Empire Strikes Back. It is sorry, I can't feel bad about putting this as number 1 because not only is it my personal favorite Star Wars movie, it is the best Star Wars movie.
Yeah, 100%.
Period.
100%.
You know what? Honestly, to add on to that, Condor, that's a really good point. Favorite and personal, it is, I think, in my opinion, the best made Star Wars movie. But my favorite is still Revenge of the Sith, and that's for just ultra personal reasons, and that's it, you know?
Yeah,
Fair.
That's how I feel. That's how I feel.
Yeah, well, it looks like Barney's gonna pass out. So we'll leave you with that. Let us know down in the comments what your rankings of these movies are, and if you agree with our points, what points would you make, and where would you place things? What are your honorable mentions? Any piece of Star Wars media, what is your favorite? Let us know in the comments. We're actually really curious to know. And at the same time, don't forget to hit the like button so we know you liked the video. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. You can catch Audio Program Council and our new series, Land World, with Bilth as our host. And yeah, with that, I have been the Omega Condor. You can find me at youtube.com/the Omega Condor. That's Seabass. You can find him at twitch.tv/Seabass_118. That's Bilth. You can find him at Twitter, or formerly known as Twitter, x.com/at Payless Pistachio. And you can find Barnes right here. So hit the notification bell so you can see more of that beautiful mug. Good night, everyone.